I probably got to turn that off. I always battle with that here. I don't think it's that bad today, hopefully. Let me move my mic right here. Oh, fun. Oh, fun. Gotta love the same thing. That would have been a cool title to have. Unfortunately, you can't put that. Can't wait for this. I'm sure this is going to be fun. I'm sure everybody's going to have a nice, peaceful time. No issues, no complaints. 100% happy with how things go. Right? Everyone's happy? We're all cool? You know, everything went spiffy, was perfectly fine. Nobody had any issues, right? Just a wonderful trade deadline with no problems whatsoever. Everyone loved what they got. No issues, no problems, none of that. Just the same old stuff. I gotta make sure this is set up here. Believe we should be good. Let me do one last thing before I get to say my piece. I think I can do one or two more things. There we go. Oh, okay. Love how to do these things. And then as soon as I turn you off, it's the same story. So I might as well play. I think I should be good. I think. All right. Yeah, I'm just gonna deal with it. I think it's time to talk about the Ravens, because that's all we do. Right, what is going on, everybody? Hope you guys are enjoying your day. Ravens flock, how y'all doing on this Tuesday? It's 5 o'clock. Would it still count as afternoon? No, I would say evening. It's more closer to evening than afternoon at this point. But hope you guys enjoy your day. So it's 5 o'clock. As of an hour ago, the NFL trade deadline officially came to an end. Teams made the trades they wanted to make, got what they wanted to get, and called it a day. Some of the big power moves we saw: course, the Commanders, which I love them doing this. Commanders going out and getting Marshawn Lattimore. They desperately needed a corner, and they got their guy. Washington right now, making that trade puts them in a different category. And I feel like I got to make a video about that. So that's probably for something later. But you get teams that are going out there being aggressive. The Steelers trading for Mike Williams and then trading for a pass rusher. They needed a wide receiver. They got the wide receiver they needed. They needed somebody who can help them out alongside George Pickens, and they got that. And Mike Williams is going to be a huge asset for the Steelers. They also got a pass rusher, which, again, they don't necessarily need, but depth for the Steelers is always needed on that defense. So adding him alongside T.J. Watt and that crew is going to be very, very dangerous. The Steelers got better. You saw teams make some huge trades. Everyone making moves. Everyone praising the moves that happened. And then you just look at the Ravens. Ooh, boy. So we were here last week. When we talked about the Ravens pulling off that first trade. They traded for Deontay Johnson last week, and we talked about that. We said Deontay Johnson solves the issue we have with our wide receiver core because we needed wide receiver depth. And they went out and got it. But that wasn't the main concern. EDC had a whole week to get the main concern figured out. There were a few spots we also could have added to, like a corner or a safety, but that wasn't top priority. Everybody knew what the top priority was for the Ravens. The fans knew it, the team themselves knew it, the media knew it. The main concern for the Ravens was their pass rushing unit. They don't have a pass rush. They don't. Matter of fact, the Ravens actually have they actually have one of the worst, if not the worst, pass rushing rate in the National Football League. They simply can't get to the quarterback. And we've seen it the last few weeks. They couldn't get to Jameis Winston. They really couldn't get to Bo Nix. And yeah, they got 3 sacks in a situation where they were up by double digits and the game was practically out of hand for most of it. Nobody cares if we get sacks late in the game in a blowout. That doesn't matter. When this team needs to get sacks in key situations, they can't do it. They can't get to the quarterback in key situations. Everybody knew what the biggest issue was for the Ravens. They can't get to the quarterback. They can't get to the quarterback in the beginning of the game. They can't get to the quarterback in late game situations. Everybody knew that was the problem. So because of that, everyone expected the Ravens to go out and trade for a pass rusher. People were hoping that they would get a reunion with Tre'Davious Clowney. People were hoping that they'd be able to go out and try to get Tre'Davious Smith, even though we knew that wasn't going to happen. People were hoping and expecting the Ravens to go get a pass rusher that can put pressure on quarterbacks and get them in a position to where they can actually be able to get the ball in the quarterback's hands and get them down to the ground. They didn't do that. And it's 100% expected. Not even surprised. So, the Ravens made 2 moves by the trade deadline. Last week, they traded for Deontay Johnson. Today, with half an hour to go before the trade deadline, they traded for Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White used to be a top-tier corner. Tre'Davious White is not the same Tre'Davious White you had seen in Buffalo. Matter of fact, I'm pulling up the numbers right now. Tre'Davious White was a healthy scratch. He was a healthy scratch for the Rams. He was rarely played. In the games that he did play, which has been 4 games, I will give you the numbers right here. Tre'Davious White has played 4 games this season for the Los Angeles Rams. In 4 games, Tre'Davious White gave up 12 completions on 18 targets for 178 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 138.4. Simply, when quarterbacks targeted Tre'Davious White, their receiver made the play. When quarterbacks targeted Tre'Davious White, the receiver was scoring touchdowns. I want to repeat this. In 4 games that Tre'Davious White played for the Los Angeles Rams, he had given up 12 completions on 18 targets, had allowed 178 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns, and a quarterback passer rating of 138.4. That's what they traded for. They got Deontay Johnson for virtually nothing. They got Tre'Davious White for virtually nothing. Cool. You added 2 players and didn't lose anything. What about the main need of pass rush? You have 10 draft picks, and you don't address your biggest need. Wow, that's really smart. Now, is Deontay Johnson a main piece? No, he's here for depth reasons. He's wide receiver 3. Maybe even wide receiver 4 because they still like Nelson Aguilar. Is Tre'Davious White a main piece? Doubt it. He's just here for depth purposes. Maybe he'll be alternating with some of the other corners. Maybe because of how bad Brandon Stephens has looked, they may try to alternate between Brandon Stephens and Tre'Davious White. I don't know. He's probably just here to be a depth piece. But you didn't get anything that really moved people. Those 2 picks do not move anybody. You were supposed to go out and get a game changer, according to the fans that thought you would, according to the media that was pressing you to do so. Eric DeCosta was supposed to go out and get a game changer. A guy that was going to get to the quarterback and completely reshape this defense. You had the opportunities to try to go do so. You had the draft picks to try to go make a deal. You couldn't get anything done. And that's just how it is. Am I surprised? No, I'm not surprised in the slightest. I expected the Ravens to not do anything. I was surprised they even made trades in the first place. I thought they would have just been dead silent and done nothing. But surprisingly, they made trades. But, EDC, we really got to talk about EDC, man. We really got to talk about EDC as a GM. Because if he doesn't finesse teams, he doesn't do anything. I'm not saying he's not a good GM. I think his resume, what he has done as a GM, is good. It's really good, and in some cases it's great. But he can never be seen as the best GM in the NFL because he's never aggressive enough to go make those big moves when the team needs him most. When it comes to finessing teams, nobody is better at doing that than Eric DeCosta. He got 2 players for virtually nothing. He got Deontay Johnson and Tre'Davious White for virtually nothing. The Ravens don't lose anything major. Nothing. They don't lose anything and they get those 2 players. He's a finesse king. And we praise the fact that you're able to finesse teams and get these players. But when it comes to you being aggressive in a situation where you cannot finesse a team to get a game changer, you got to sit back, negotiate, and you've got to be willing to compromise and give up some of those big draft picks in order to get a top-tier guy. When it comes to that, EDC has not had the best track record in doing so. That doesn't mean he hasn't done it before. I think Roquan Smith's been the biggest example. They gave up a second-round pick to go get... was that a first-round or a second-round pick? I believe it was a first-round pick. A first-round pick or a second-round pick. They gave up a first or a second to go get Roquan Smith because they believed that was going to be their guy for years to come. They pulled off the trade. It was a second? Okay, so yeah. They went and gave up a second-round pick. That's something they don't normally do. They did that to go get Roquan Smith. They've made those type of moves. We've seen those type of moves. You can name 3. Roquan Smith, Yannick Ngakoue back in 2020. And then in 2019, you saw them go out and get Marcus Peters. So they have made these type of moves before. But it's so infrequent. And in some cases, it works. Other cases, it doesn't work out. But for the majority of the time we've seen EDC as a GM, we haven't necessarily seen him be overly aggressive. And the fun part, the interesting part, or at least the funny part is, a lot of the big moves he's made has been for the defense. And we've always sat back and been like, you've got to be aggressive and go get somebody on the offensive side. We've been saying that for years. And then you come into this season, and all of a sudden, we've been telling EDC for years, you got to be aggressive and invest in the offense. Now we're sitting here saying, you've got to be aggressive and go get somebody for the defense. And he just doesn't do it. He has shown that he can be aggressive, but honestly, I don't think he's been aggressive enough in some of these key moments. And that's a problem. Am I surprised? No. Am I surprised? No. I told you guys from the beginning I didn't expect the Ravens to go out and get anybody. I didn't. I thought they wouldn't have made any moves by the trade deadline. But since the Panthers and the Rams were practically giving away random players for free, why wouldn't EDC do that? They were giving them away for free. He didn't have to work. They were giving them away for free. He didn't have to do much work. What work did he do? The Panthers didn't gain or lose anything. They wanted to, well, they lost Deontay Johnson, but they wanted to get rid of him anyway. The Ravens lost nothing from the Deontay Johnson trade. So what work did you put in to get him? The Panthers wanted to get rid of him for free, and you essentially got him for free. What work did you put in to get Tre'Davious White? What work did you do? They wanted to get rid of him. They wanted to get rid of him. And you practically got him for free. I give you credit for pulling off those trades, but how much work was really done? You know how much work, you know what you could look at and say, hey, this was a lot of work to pull off. Adam Peters. I don't even remember where his office is. Gotta give that man praise. The Commanders needed the corner, and they were highly aggressive. The Chiefs were on one of the lists that was on the clock trying to get Marshawn Lattimore. The Commanders swooped in and said, no, we need him. A team that is trying to compete, that is trying to go from a team where their ceiling is possibly winning the division and just being a playoff team, they wanted to take that next step and be a Super Bowl contending team. They needed that. They needed a corner. What do they go and do? They go get Marshawn Lattimore. And now you look at the Commanders' defense a bit differently because their biggest weakness is in their secondary. And they go get Marshawn Lattimore. That's putting in work. That is putting in work. That is putting in work. Gotta give the man credit. That is putting in work. That's being aggressive. That's something that was difficult to do. That's putting in a lot of work. But with this, you get two great players. You get two players for practically nothing. Credit to EDC. You got Deontay Johnson for nothing. You got Tre'Davious White for nothing. That deserves praise. You finessed two teams. Give EDC his credit for getting those two. He deserves his credit. You finessed two teams. You had an issue with the wide receiving core. You had wide receiver depth issues. We all saw Zay Flowers go down in that Bucs game briefly. So you needed to address that. And you got that. Now your wide receiver depth is fine. That's not an issue anymore. The cornerback situation for Baltimore has always been an issue for years. You've always had a lot of corners, but they always end up getting hurt, especially midway through the season. Adding to the secondary was important. And you got Tre'Davious White, a depth piece, for virtually nothing. So you definitely deserve credit. But you didn't address the biggest need. So good on you for getting those two, and you deserve your credit for getting them for practically nothing. But you also didn't address one of the biggest needs, a pass rush. What are you going to do if you can't get to the quarterback? The secondary can't hold up for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds. If you can't get to the quarterback, that's going to hurt you. That is. It's going to hurt you. And you didn't go out and get that. So now you're stuck with what you have. If this pass rush is the reason you end up losing to Kansas City or Buffalo in the playoffs, so be it. If you can't get to Mahomes or Allen in January, it is what it is. There's nothing to do. You chose to rely on the guys you have right now. Despite the fact that this is one of the worst pass rushing units in football, they have one of the worst pass rushing win rates in the National Football League right now. They simply can't get to the quarterback. He didn't address that. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. So you just deal with what you got to deal with. Me personally, I'm not surprised. I mean, I didn't expect them to get a pass rusher. People are going to be mad. People are going to be coming after EDC. People's going to be outraged. You got a lot of people that are disappointed that they didn't get a pass rusher. Me, I didn't expect it in the first place. So how can I be mad, angry, or sad if I never expected you to go out and get a pass rusher in the first place? I didn't even think you'd make a move. That's why I give you credit for the 2 moves, but I didn't expect you to do anything. I know people thought they could go out and get Tre'Davious Smith, go out and try to steal Max Crosby, go get Jadeveon Clowney from the Panthers. Y'all were expecting it. I didn't expect it. So I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. I'm not disappointed. I'm not angry because it was never within my expectations. I knew the Ravens weren't giving up those draft picks. They don't like giving up draft picks. And they're not going to give up draft picks for a player that they're not even sure they can sign long term. Why would they go get Clowney if they know he's not going to be here for them long term? And if they wanted Clowney to be here long term, they would have signed him afterwards. So, you deal with what you got to deal with. If the pass rush is the reason why you don't go to the Super Bowl, if the pass rush is the reason why Mahomes cooks your secondary because he has all the time in the world, or Allen cooks your secondary in January because he has all the time in the world, you live with the results. You did not invest in the pass rushing unit, you live with the results. At this point, you just got to go say, Lamar, you know the defense has its issues. You're going to have to go outscore your opponent. This offense is going to have to put up 30-plus points every playoff game if they're going to want to get to the Super Bowl. Good luck. You have all those pieces, all those weapons. It's on the offense now. Defense can't carry you in the postseason. It's on the offense now. That's just how it is. I'm going to read some of these comments here just to get an idea of how some of y'all feel about this. I like the White pickup. You got him for virtually nothing, so it's hard to hate on a pick where it's hard to hate on a trade where you didn't lose anything. They didn't lose anything. You got him for nothing, so it's hard to really hate on that. EDC wants to depend on no sacks, Owe, and Ojabo. Well, those are your guys. Better tell them to do something. Isn't Tre'Davious whitewashed? He's suffered a lot of injuries. He's not the same guy he was in Buffalo, and he was not great with the Rams. These 4 games he's played this year, he's been bad. This is laughable. How can we predict this? Someone put Ozzie back in charge, please. That's not changing much. What's going on, Josh? Tre'Davious can't be worse than Stevens. Based on the 4-game aspect that I just named, he probably is just as bad, if not worse, than Brandon Stevens. I don't even think Brandon Stevens has given up 4 touchdowns this year. White was getting burnt all year. Oh, that's perfect. Bo Nix had more time in the pocket than Wallets. That's funny. Keep your head up, brother. It's Harbs and EDC. What's going on, Raven C? I'm not really surprised. Like I said, I'm not disappointed. I'm not sitting here like depressed or disappointed. It's well within my expectations. I'm just seeing the Ravens flock right now. They're angry, they're pissed off, and they're disappointed. I'm telling you, this was well within the expectations. Y'all can be pissed off about it, disappointed, but the Ravens were never going to make that type of move. They were always going to be in conversation, but they don't like to give up picks. If it's not a finesse or it's not cheap, they're not making the move. It is what it is. White is the ghost of a good DB past. Well, he's on this team now, so good luck with that. White is a backup, not a starter. Relax. I never said he was a starter. I said he was a depth piece. Baltimore, we love our guys even though they suck. Ravens. They'll love their guys to the end, even if they're not doing anything on the field. We're cooked. Another wasted year for Lamar. It's up to Lamar now. You can't say another wasted year, bro. You got all the weapons in the world offensively. You better figure out how to score 40. You better figure out. You need 30-plus points in the playoffs, Lamar. You know, this is from now until January. You understand that your defense ain't good. You need to score 30-plus points to win a football game. You know the assignment. It's you, it's Henry, it's Flowers, it's Andrews, it's Bateman. It's like you got all those weapons on offense. Figure it out. You want to get to the Super Bowl, you got to rely on you and the offense. The defense is going to sell. It's up to you and the offense. If you're going to go down, let this narrative not be the offense didn't show up in the playoffs this year. Let the narrative be the defense didn't show up. If we lose a 35-31 game, hey, Lamar and the offense did their job. The defense gave up 35 points. But you can't afford to lose another game like 25-15 or something like that. You can't afford that. The offense got to show up in the playoffs. If this year the reason we get sold is because of the defense, you can't look at Lamar and the offense. At that point, you say the defense was just trash and they didn't help. You lose a 35-31 playoff game, it's not on Lamar. But if the offense comes into the playoffs and do what they did in the AFC title game and puts up 10 points, it's not going to be a good look. It's not. So, offensively, you better put up 30 points a playoff game. If you win, cool. If you don't, that's just how it is. I wanted Josh Norman is crazy. Wait, EDC has been aggressive. Yeah, he has. He has been in the past. Not recently, but he has been in the past. Ravens are setting themselves up to fail. When you got no pass rush, you can't get to a quarterback. It's going to hurt you come January. But they're playing with fire, and it seems like they're fine with that. What do you think of Washington getting Lattimore? It changes the whole scope of the season for the Commanders. Washington getting Lattimore changes the season for the Commanders. Deontay for 100-plus Thursday. I don't even know if Deontay's playing, and if he is playing, I don't even know if he's going to get that. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Y'all wanted a wide receiver. We got one. Y'all never happy. People wanted a pass rusher. The number one priority for the Ravens was a pass rusher, and the number one focus coming into the trade deadline was a pass rusher. They can't get to the quarterback. Wide receiver was one of the issues, which again, people aren't mad at the Deontay Johnson trade because that was one of the issues that needed to be addressed. But the main concern was pass rush. My friend, you can't get to the quarterback. What are you going to do in the playoffs when Mahomes has 6, 7, 8 seconds to beat you? Your secondary can't hold up. At some point, we can't sit back and blame Zachary Orr when the pass rush can't get to the quarterback. I don't care who you are as a defensive coordinator. I don't care who you have in the secondary. They cannot hold up for 5+ seconds. At some point, either a play is going to be completed or a flag is going to be called for holding. You can't hold up for that long. That's why you need a pass rush. So this idea that, we got one, y'all never happy. People are not going to be happy because the main aspect that needed to be addressed was not addressed. Was the wide receiver situation an issue that needed to be addressed? Absolutely. Are people mad that they addressed it? No. But the main problem is you can't get to the quarterback. If you're sitting here in January and you can't get to Patrick Mahomes, you're going to lose that football game. I mean, I don't get what you're not understanding there. If you can't get to the quarterback, you're not going to make stops. So how are you supposed to beat them if you can't get to the quarterback? Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Hall of Fame complainer. Yeah, sure. I guess that's it. I guess that's it. I mean, you guys never seem to see it until the team loses. Then when the team loses, you blame it on Lamar. You blame it on this. You call for this guy to be fired. You never seem to see it until it finally blows up in the team's face. Then y'all want to be sitting here crying and whining on social media. Oh, Lamar didn't get it done. Oh, John Harbaugh should be fired. Yada, yada, yada. The issues are clear as day to everybody. We're watching it right now in November. The issues are clear as day. Y'all want to ignore it. Then when this team falls short in January, now y'all want to cry on Twitter. All right, let's see how that works out. We needed a pass rusher. Yeah, we did. You don't have one now? Deal with what you got to deal with. Hopefully it gets you to the Super Bowl. Hopefully guys step up. These are the guys you drafted. You would hope they would step up. You would hope the guys you drafted, Ndafeowe and David Ojabo, would step up. You drafted those guys. But I hope for the best. If the trade winds up working, this guy will be silent. Yeah, sure. I guess I'll be silent. Because, again, if the trade works out for what? If the Deontay trade works out, I'm going to be silent? That's great. Another weapon to add to the offense. How is that going to stop us? How is that going to help us get to the quarterback? Oh, you get Tre'Davious White. If he winds up helping out the secondary, that's great. How is that going to help us get to the quarterback? Again, you guys never seem to see the issues until it blows up in the team's face. Then you cry on Twitter about how this team can't get over the hump. Harbaugh's got to be fired. Lamar Jackson can't get over the hump. Yada, yada, yada. Y'all never see it until it blows up in your face. So you keep having that mindset. And when it blows up in your face, continue to cry on Twitter. Is what we do as fans. You'll defend the team until they lose and you start crying on Twitter. And then when you're sitting there at the end of the day, guys just aren't executing. I mean, you saw the game. The guys weren't getting to Mahomes. They let him have all day. But we mentioned in November, they didn't have a pass rush. When you're sitting there in January and getting pissed off because nobody's getting to Mahomes, remember in November, they had a chance to get a pass rusher. You guys chose to ignore it and say, well, we're crying and complaining. The people that are mentioning this now, they're crying and complaining. But come January, when they can't get to Mahomes, you'll be the one crying and complaining because we lost again. And you'll be saying, fire Harbaugh, fire this guy. Zachary Orr is not the guy, defensive coordinator. They need to do this. They need to do that. So, cool. You save your complaints for when it blows up in the team's face. Or who knows, maybe magic will happen. Magic happened in 2012. People like to act like we can replicate 2012 when it took a miracle Hail Mary by Jacoby Jones, rest in peace, to get us past Denver. We should have lost that game against Denver. People forget that. It took a miracle. So if you're hoping for another miracle run, hey, let's see if it happens. Tre'Davious White is literally worth nothing. Well, we got him for nothing, so you're not mad at that. Our pass rush is the word pass without the P in front of it. That's funny. That's really funny. Let's see. In Tre'Davious Robinson, we trust. He's been good. He's been good. Hopefully, he continues to play the way he's playing. Remember, we like our guys. We always like our guys. Just gotta hope Travis Jones is healthy. I guess that's what we're banking on. Yeah, you gotta hope on your D-line just being healthy. Offense gotta put up 30 every single playoff game. Yeah. Pretty much. Tre'Davious Robinson's Mike McCray 2.0. Who needs a pass rush when you have Eddie Jackson? Obviously. How do you think JD will do against Pittsburgh's defense? That's a good question. I think this might be the first week JD has some struggles because I think Pittsburgh's defense is really aggressive. I think it comes down to the offensive line play. If they give JD time to actually throw, I trust in Jaden Daniels beating any defense if he has time to throw. But if they're constantly putting pressure on him, especially with TJ Watt roaming, if they're putting pressure on JD, it's going to be a long day for the Commanders' offense. We've seen the Giants give them problems, and the Giants are a good team defensively, but the Giants' defense and the Steelers' defense are two entirely different monsters. So you might see JD struggle at times. I think he could do well against Pittsburgh's secondary, but that front seven is aggressive. And if they get to JD, it's going to be a long game for the Commanders. Bo Nix overthrew 4 touchdown passes. EDC let that Denver game get to his head. I guess. What did you expect? Ravens love hanging on to players' potential. I mean, it's the same thing. Who's fixing the thing? Yo, who's messing with the smoke detector? You good, bro? Because I can hear him in the basement. Why is he fixing the smoke detector? What is he doing? Whatever. As a Steelers fan, we got a white receiver, and then we got another pass. Oh, we got a wide receiver, and then we got another pass rusher. I'm proud, man. Yeah, the Steelers got better. That's really going to help out. It said MP was washed, too, but MP balled out. I mean, I don't know if they were really saying MP was washed, because, if you saw what he was doing the year prior to when we got him in 2018, he was still doing his thing with the Rams. And even when we got him, he was still doing his thing with the Rams. I don't know if they were saying he was washed coming into Baltimore. People thought that was actually a good trade. What trade surprised you the most? For me, it's Preston Smith to the Steelers and Mingo to the Cowboys. I would say Mingo to the Cowboys surprised me just because I didn't think Jerry Jones would trade for a receiver when Dak's pretty much gone for the next month. But other than that, I think the biggest surprise to me was the Commanders going out and getting Marshawn Lattimore. I was 80% sure he was going to Kansas City just because teams just want to keep trading with the Chiefs. I was 80% sure he was going to KC. To hear that Washington swooped in and stole him, biggest surprise. That was the best move any team had made for me personally. The most predictable move was Tre'Davious Smith to the Lions. We knew that was going to happen. Ravens don't get no pass rushes at all. This is coming from the Steelers. We're not surprised, man. This is what we do. So when we have no pass rush and we can't get to the quarterback come January, it is what it is. Ravens are top 5 in sacks but get no pressure. I don't know how they do it. That's the funny part. I don't know how they're top 5 in sacks but don't get pressure. They're one of the worst. They have one of the worst pass rush win rates, but they get sacks. That doesn't make sense. That means they're generating sacks and blowouts. You have to take a look at the sacks and see when they get them. Look at the games where they blew people out. Look at the game against the Bills. Look at the game where they were leading highly. Maybe the Cowboys game. Look at the game last week against Denver. 3 of their sacks was when they were already up double digits. They're getting a lot of sacks in situations when they're up big. but they're not getting sacks in key situations, and they're not generating pressure in key situations. Perfect example is last week. Jameis Winston had all the time in the world. In a close game, especially down the stretch, the man was not getting pressured. So it seems like the Ravens are generating sacks, but they're not generating sacks in the key moments. It's only happening in blowouts when people are just trying to run up, like they're trying to get some points or run some garbage time touchdowns. So I'd say Lamar Jackson is going to be Dan Marino. That'd be, actually, no, can't say that. Because, I mean, Dan Marino had no defense. The one time he had a defense, they made it to the Super Bowl. That was early in his career. After that, they gave him no defense. None. His entire career. Lamar has at least had great defenses. There's been a couple years where he's had great defenses. There's been a couple years where he's had bad defenses. But you can't say Lamar's never had a good defense. One time Dan Marino had a good defense. They got to the Super Bowl that year. After that, no. They gave him nothing defensively. And they barely gave him stuff offensively. The Ravens value draft picks too much. Depending on the player, I draft a 1 for a star linebacker, but not 2 firsts. Is what it is. You are a Hall of Fame complainer, but keeping it real with your team, I don't understand it. And this is coming from Steele's friend. I don't think I'm a Hall of Fame complainer. I don't really think I complained that much. A lot of times, I'm sitting here saying I expected the Ravens to do this like this. I'm not even complaining about them not getting a pass rusher. I expected this. I'm just giving the aspect of the take that I'm seeing from the fan base and speaking as to why people are mad that we didn't get a pass rusher. At the same time, I gave the other perspective. I knew they weren't going to get a pass rusher. A lot of times, I'm not complaining about the moves and decisions the Ravens make. I expected it. Like even the Browns lost. I wasn't complaining about how things went. I expected them to lose that game. I did. The Ravens have 2 games a year where they just don't do anything right. I expected that. It was bound to happen with the Ravens. And I expected them to not get a pass rusher. I don't really think I complain like that. You never really see me here like, oh man, this team never do this. A lot of times I'm really just like, oh, the Ravens didn't do this, and that. I'm not surprised. A lot of times the Ravens make moves that I'm not surprised by. It's been years and I've seen the same thing. I thought the Ravens would get Lattimore. I didn't. I thought he was going to Kansas City. So when Washington swooped in and took him, I was happy. I did not think he was going to Baltimore. Meanwhile, Preston Smith went for a 7th. Yeah, the Steelers added depth to their front 7. Good on them. Consistent complainer you are. I guess so. I mean, y'all keep saying I'm a complainer, but consistently, I always come here anytime a move is made or a move is not made, and I say I'm not surprised by it. So I don't know where this idea that I am a complainer. You know what? I think it's because I always take the stance of just being honest and keeping it real, that it always comes up. Maybe it's just because I'm not the happy-go-lucky fan. They'll be like, oh, the Ravens didn't do this, but who cares? We'll still be fine. Everybody's complaining. I'm not the overly positive fan. I guess that's why. If you're not an overly positive fan, you're a complainer. I guess that's the mindset. Because I'm not sitting here ignoring the flaws of the team, I'm automatically a complainer. If that's the title you want to give me, I'm happy. I don't live in the world of delusion. I'm not going to turn a blind eye just because I'm a fan of a football team. I'm not going to ignore the issues that can cost them a title because I'm a fan of a football team. So if I got to be labeled a complainer because I'm pointing out the flaws of a team that will actively keep this team from winning a championship, I'll take that title 10 out of 10. I'm not going to be a delusional fan that's willing to ignore all the problems and just be happy-go-lucky because Lamar Jackson's playing well and Derrick Henry's playing well, Zay Flowers is playing well. Y'all are half glass full guys. I'm half glass empty guy. That's just it. I can recognize the good, but I also point out the bad. Nobody has a problem when I'm pointing out the good. When I talk about Lamar Jackson for MVP, when I'm talking about Derrick Henry for Offensive Player of the Year, when I'm praising Zay Flowers, when I give credit to the defense, nobody says I'm complaining. But once I start pointing out the flaws of the team, now I'm a complainer. I'd rather be a complainer than be a delusional fan. I'm not going to pretend I don't see the problems with my team. That would be disrespectful to the people that follow me on this channel. We've always been a channel that's been honest and true with how things are. If you want to ignore the issues, by all means, ignore the issues. Literally every team has holes. Absolutely. I'm not saying every team doesn't have holes. But you have to address the main ones. Every team's going to have holes. But you cannot just ignore the biggest problem. At the end of the day, I'm telling you right now, if the Ravens never addressed the wide receiver issue or this corner issue and they would have just got a pass rusher, nobody would be complaining right now. Because the biggest problem on this team is pass rusher. If this team would have got out and got Jadeveon Clowney or Zadarius Smith, but they didn't get Deontay Johnson and they didn't get Tre'Davious White, nobody would be complaining because you addressed your biggest issue. Everybody knows you're going to have holes on the team. Even with the two people they got, there's still holes on this team. The safety position isn't the best. We've seen it with Marcus Williams. He's been bad, and Eddie Jackson's been bad. That hasn't been the best. The offensive line is still an issue. There's holes on this team. You're never going to fix everything. And I've been on record saying you're never going to fix everything. But you have to address the big issues. And that's what y'all seem to forget. You have to address the main issues. You can't address everything, but you must address the main issue. And it seems like y'all just forget that. No one's saying you got to address every issue, but you have to address the main issue. The main issue with the Ravens was pass rush, not wide receiver, not corner. The pass rush. Again, to reiterate, the Ravens have one of the worst pass rush win rate in the National Football League. That is their biggest weakness. They cannot get to the quarterback. If they would have just gotten a pass rusher, not gotten a receiver, not gotten a corner, those holes will still be there on the team. But you would have addressed your biggest issue. People would have been fine. You would sit back and say, receiver depth is problematic, but you got Bateman and Flowers. You're cool with it. And the cornerback depth is concerned, but we got Nate Wiggins, who's a dog, and Marlon Humphrey's one of the best corners. You'll survive. But who do you have for the pass rushing unit? Your biggest concern. You don't have anybody there. So you didn't address your biggest concern. There's always going to be holes on the team. No team is perfect, but you have to address your biggest issues. And that's what some of y'all seem to forget. EDC don't care about this team. I disagree. I'm not going to sit back and say he doesn't care about this team. I'm not going to sit back and say that. That's just going too far. Dude thinks team will be perfect. That's not what I'm thinking. You're just making assumptions based off of what? Maybe I'm not speaking English. You guys aren't clearly understanding me, but you're just making assumptions. I never said this team would be perfect. And I'm never saying they have to get every aspect to be addressed. I'm saying you address the main issues. The Ravens didn't address the main issue. They addressed some of these lesser issues, but they ignored the main issue. That's where the problem is. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just not speaking English or you guys aren't comprehending the words I'm saying. You understand without a pass rush, their quarterback will have all day to sit in the pocket all day. That's going to be bad. Yeah, like dudes are just sitting here just ignoring what I'm saying and thinking I'm saying every aspect's got to be taken care of and saying I'm complaining. We have no pass rush. We can't get to Mahomes. Is that not seen as a problem? The Chiefs are on the verge. The Chiefs are on the verge of three-peating. And me pointing out that our defense can't get to the quarterback is not an issue that needs to be addressed. We can't get to the quarterback. How are we going to beat Mahomes? We couldn't get to Jameis Winston with the game on the line. How are we supposed to do that with Mahomes? Me pointing that out is a bad thing? You have no pass rush and you struggle to get to the quarterback. Me pointing out that that needed to be addressed more than anything else is a bad thing? All right. Y'all can keep being delusional fans. Y'all can keep doing that because those same fans that are being delusional right now will be the same fans that cry when we lose in the playoffs because we can't get to Mahomes or we can't get to Josh Allen. Like, what are y'all on about? Me saying we need a pass rush because it's the most important aspect is all of a sudden me complaining and me pretending that we need this team to be perfect. That makes no sense. If you can't get to the quarterback, that affects the entire defense because the defense can't hold for 5+ seconds. You've got to get to the quarterback. So come January when we can't get to Patrick Mahomes, how are we going to beat him? How are we going to beat that Chiefs offense if we can't get to the passer? How are you going to beat Josh Allen if you can't get to the passer come January? And you can assume because we beat them in week 4, that we'll just do it again come playoff time. That's not how that works. Just because you beat somebody in the regular season doesn't mean you're going to beat them in the postseason. That's not how that works. And the Bills have gotten better since we faced off against them since we faced off against them in week 4. The Bills are a better team now than they were in week 4. So like, what are we talking about here? If we can't get to Allen in the playoff game, if we can, the two most dangerous quarterbacks we will be in the playoffs this year. The two most dangerous quarterbacks, other than our guy Lamar Jackson, the two most dangerous quarterbacks, in terms of trying to get down to the ground, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Lamar, Allen, and Mahomes are the three most difficult quarterbacks to get on the ground. We have no pass rush. In a playoff game, how are we supposed to get one of those two down? Like, what are we talking about here? The same ones that are ignoring these issues will be the same ones crying on Twitter saying everybody should be fired. They'll ignore these issues in January to cry about it. They'll ignore these issues in November to cry about it in January. So what's the point? You're going to cry about it when it ultimately leads to this team not getting it done. And then you'll start pointing the fingers and blaming this, and that. Y'all do that. Y'all keep doing that. It's a big part of why I said I don't come into these seasons with expectations. I know how the Ravens work. But y'all keep having a blind eye and ignoring all these things. When it costs you, it should be funny. Chris Glazes, that individual, blames Lamar when a defense can't stop the offense. That'd be fun if he actually does that. Chill, we have Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson's going to save the day, man. Eddie Jackson's going to save the day. Consistent complainer? I guess so. I'll be a consistent complainer. And you'll be a crier come January when the team doesn't do what they need to do. When they can't get to Mahomes, you'll be crying. These guys stink. They can't touch Mahomes at all. You'll be the first to cry about it. But remember, in November, we could have done something about it, and we didn't. We haven't had a pass rush for a minute now. You had something better last year with Clowney, but you don't have Clowney anymore. The Chiefs and Lions have no holes anymore. I would disagree. I think the Chiefs secondary still isn't what it wanted to be. That's why they were in it for Marshawn Lattimore. I think if there's a weakness on the defense, their front seven is dangerous. Their front seven is dangerous. The linebacking core is decent. Their secondary can be exploited. Baker did that yesterday. That secondary can be exploited. There are holes. That's why they wanted Marshawn Lattimore. And then on the offensive side, they still have holes at receiver. I mean, it's great that you got DeAndre Hopkins, but that doesn't solve all their problems at receiver, which is why they're hopeful they can get one of these guys back. If they can find a way to get someone back like a Hollywood Brown, that would help tremendously. And they might get Pacheco back too, I think. Or is Pacheco done? It's one. I don't know who's done for the season, Pacheco or Rashee Rice. They could get one of those two back because one of them's done for the year. The other could potentially come back. If they get all their weapons, they'll be fine. But right now, I wouldn't say they have no holes. I think defensively, you see that. For the Lions, I think, again, in some cases, defensively, you do see a bit of issues defensively. In terms of the secondary, once again. But the secondary has done a relatively good job in holding up, but there's still some weaknesses within that secondary of the defense for the Lions, but not too much to really bother them. Their front seven has been great. Even though they lost Aiden Hutchinson, they've still done a great job getting to the quarterback. And they made plays in the secondary, so it's at least not been a major issue for them. And then offensively, at times, other than St. Brown, you don't know who that other guy is legitimately at receiver for you. So there are technically aspects of quote-unquote holes, but the Lions do make up for it in other areas because they have this tremendous running game, so they don't need that aspect of the receiving core to be the strongest. Madubuike's got to step up. Yeah. Ready for another Devin Leary pick? I guess so. Giants only won the fourth. You know what? I've heard they wanted the fourth, but I knew the Ravens weren't going to get that. I knew they weren't going to get that. It is what it is. We need a defense. We need defense and a pass rusher. We do need a pass rusher. They just got to give Ojabo and Isaac a legit opportunity. You can give them the opportunity, but if they're not doing anything with it, they're not doing with it. David Ojabo's had opportunities this season. He started the season playing. He became a healthy scratch because he wasn't doing anything on the field. So saying David Ojabo hasn't been getting a legit opportunity, that's untrue. They've given them opportunities. He's not doing anything on the field. I think also because Kyle and Odafre were on a hot start and they both seemingly fell off, could be gauging it wrong. I guess. They weren't going to hold up forever, and you do need help. No pass rusher, no Super Bowl. I guess it'll be another one of those seasons. Opinion equals complaining nowadays. I guess so. You and Graven, Coach, and all 22 are the best Ravens fans on YouTube. I appreciate that. I don't think I'm the best or even one of the best. I just do my thing. Keeping it real is not a complainer. I guess so. I mean, if me speaking the truth about the team's issues is me being a complainer, I'll be a complainer every single day of the week. Would you be cool with the Ravens giving up a top draft pick for the right player? Yes! We are not a team that's rebuilding. We are in the Super Bowl window. We are competing for a title. If you're rebuilding, I understand why you want to keep those draft picks. But we're not rebuilding. We're not rebuilding. If you can get a player that can help you win the Super Bowl this year, go and do it. I'm 100% for that. What are we keeping all these draft picks for? If you've looked at the recent history for the Ravens, half the draft picks don't even end up doing anything for the Ravens. So why are you keeping all these picks in the first place? If you could put together a package to get a legitimate guy that can help us win a title this year, why not do it instead of keeping those draft picks? I'm always for doing that. Honestly, the pass rush was great when our interior line was healthy. Jones being hurt, Pierce being hurt, Washington being banged up has forced our edge rushers to face more attention. That's a fair assessment, but even when they were healthy, they weren't always the best at getting to the quarterback. I think they were better because I started off the season. When they were healthy, I said the pass rushing wasn't great, but it was solid. They've gone from solid to poor. And I think the reason they've been poor has been the injuries. But even when they were healthy, they were never this great pass rushing unit. Now, they were an elite run defense, and even with the injuries, they've been better. They've still been good at stopping the run. But other than stopping the run, they've never been this great pass rushing unit. At best, they were solid to good. And maybe that's all they need to be. Maybe you get everybody healthy, they'll still be solid to good, and that's enough to get you over the hump. I don't know. But I would say right now, the poor play from the pass rush has to be because of the injuries. And I'll give that level of leniency because that is fair. I gave some praise to the pass rush early on in the season when the team was healthy. Now these guys aren't healthy. They're playing poor. You got to be fair with it. But even when they were healthy, they weren't this elite pass rushing unit, which is why getting a guy would have helped out majorly, especially if those guys could have got healthy. Now you could have gone from a solid to a good pass rush to now being a really great pass rushing unit. It is what it is. Hopefully Trey does good here. I mean, that's all you can do as a fan, hope. I saw or heard Lattimore linked to the Ravens. That's why I thought he would get traded. I don't. Let me tell you something, Michael. Never assume a player getting linked to the Ravens is ever going to get traded there. We have probably a list of Hall of Fame players. We have a Hall of Fame list of almost Ravens. If you look at the list of almost Ravens, where you've heard this was linked to the Ravens, that was linked to the Ravens. The Ravens had a deal for this person, or the Ravens were interested in this person, or the Ravens were working on a deal, or the Ravens were in the mix for this person. If you looked at the names that are on that list, Hall of Fame team right there. Oh, they aren't Ravens fans who are calling you a complainer. I guess probably other people. I don't know. Bro, you're absolutely right. Keep talking. You talk. Block all the people saying you complain. I ain't gonna block them. They're free to say whatever they want. Facts. The pass rush was a glaring issue. Could have gotten the same quality from free agency for the two guys we got. Yeah, the Chiefs gonna eat us alive, man. I saw Patrick Mahomes with DeAndre Hopkins yesterday. Oh yeah, just give him time and watch what happens. Bills have gotten way better. We stayed the same. Yeah, good luck beating them in January. Lamar didn't practice today. He's going to play on Thursday. Harbaugh already said he's going to play on Thursday, so no one's surprised by that. Harbaugh also said that they were planning to give Lamar days off just to give him rest. They're not trying to overwork him. So Lamar got 2 days off. He was probably a little banged up from the Browns game. He had 2 days off and only practiced 1 day before the Denver game. He didn't get beat up too much in that Denver game, and they're going to give him extra rest off because it's a short week and they're playing Cincinnati in 2 days. So it's just a rest thing. We arguably got worse on defense too. It is what it is. Look, I know how the story will end, so I ain't even tripping, bro. It'll be this way until Harbaugh's gone. Funny enough, I work with another guy that's a Ravens fan, and we have the exact same outlook because we're not delusional. We have the exact same outlook, and we're like, yeah, we kind of know how this story is going to end for the Ravens. Unless they do something different that surprises us, we know how the story is going to end for them. I'll say this, though. If Lamar gets a ring with Harbaugh as his head coach, we're having top 10 all-time discussions. I'm not joking. Lamar gets a ring with this. Lamar gets a ring with this and this head coach, with some of the decision makers they've made. We're having legitimate top 10 all-time conversations now. And it'll be fun. This is sad. We need a pass rusher because our coaches won't let Isaac and Ojabo play on the field. They gave Ojabo opportunities. He didn't do much with it. But Isaac, I don't think he's been on the field much. So I would actually like to see what he can do. One of the glaring issues is also Zachary Orr. Spag is a legend and holds us in check. Our pass rush, our defense has no, or our offense has no idea how to do. Oh no, Orr has no idea how to do that. That's what you're trying to say. In terms of having to deal with Spags defense, that's Lamar Jackson. That's Lamar Jackson's job. Lamar Jackson has been working all offseason watching film. And Lamar Jackson has been working all season watching film. He's spoken on this several times throughout the season about what he's been seeing on film and how much he's been watching film. He felt very comfortable against the Denver defense because he saw what he needed to see on film and felt like he said himself, I knew the assignment. He's been watching film. So at the end of the day, in order to beat Spags' defense, that is Lamar. He's watching film. He's going to have to watch film. If they match up with Spag, he better watch every single game Lamar Jackson has played against the Chiefs. He needs to watch. From 2018 to now, if the Ravens match up with the Chiefs, Lamar needs to go back and rewatch the film from 2018 to now and watch what Spags has been doing against them defensively, because it's been a lot of the same things, and it's been problematic for us for years. So it all comes down to Lamar's film study. He needs to study Spags' defense. He needs to study what Spags is doing to him specifically, and then he needs to go from there. It's going to come down to Lamar studying what he sees on film, and then when he actually plays against that defense, what he sees on film plus what he sees when he's actually out there in terms of pre-snap determining and reading what the defense is giving him. So Lamar has to beat Spags with his film. What he's seeing on film, he has to watch it. He has to be able to understand it. He has to be able to react to it and know this is where I need to go. If Spag decides to throw this out on me, I go with this. If he decides to throw that out on me, I know what to do with this. So it's up to Lamar for that one. But in terms of Orr versus Mahomes, good luck with that. Why are we not playing Ojabo and Isaac? I don't know. We've got no response. Ojabo's been a healthy scratch for like the last 2 games. No response. No response. They got the O together, but now they want to lack on the defense. Don't make any sense at all. At least get a pass rusher. We can't get to no quarterbacks. Do they see what we see? Well, our year will end early. It'll be the same story, pretty much. What happened to Clowney or Tre'Davious? Anybody 12 draft picks and you couldn't let 2 go where it is what it is, man. It is what it is. The Ravens doing the same thing over and over again. No one can get to Mahomes. We need to cover all those second chance routes. Just relax. You know, people continue to say these things, and I get where you're coming from, but you've got to be able to generate some pressure just to make him uncomfortable. It's never about, oh, we need to get all the pass rushes in the world just to get him down, but you have to make him somewhat uncomfortable. And sitting back and saying we need to cover all those second chance routes, that's fair. But at some point, if Mahomes has 5, 6, 7 seconds to do that, no, I don't care what secondary unit you have. You can have the best secondary unit in the National Football League. If Mahomes has 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds to go make a play, buddy, he's going to make that play because corners can't hold. Past 5 seconds, you're endangering the corners because they're not going to be able to hold. They're not going to be able to hold up. Past 5 seconds, you don't know what's going to happen. The corners cannot cover these guys for 5+ seconds. What ends up happening when 5 seconds pass? Either the receiver gets open or a pass interference gets called. Because the corners can't hold up for 5+ seconds. So the reason you need a pass rusher is not to get to Mahomes, but to put some level of pressure on him to get the ball out of his hands quicker. That's needed. You can't just sit back and say we just got to cover all those second chance routes. You can't hold up for 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds as a defense. You can't expect that to happen every single play. It's not going to work. Because when you try to do that, what's going to end up happening? Penalties. You have to get some pressure on Mahomes. Not saying you got to blitz him. You never blitz him. But you got to get some pressure on him to force him to get the ball out quickly. If you get no pressure and Mahomes is able to sit back in the pocket comfortably and relax, you're just asking to get carved up. And that's what he's going to do to your defense. You think anybody in our secondary can hold up 5+ seconds against DeAndre Hopkins? No. You're just doing too much at that point. It's not going to happen. That's just not realistic. It's sad that the defense is our biggest issue when this team was built on defense. It's embarrassing that that's our biggest issue. I would agree that Lamar has been working his tail off watching film. It's showing on the field. It's really up to him. I said in terms of the offense, my concern with the Chiefs is the defense versus Mahomes. But the offense versus Spags defense, that's a Lamar thing. He's been watching a lot of film. Whatever he's seeing on film has been working out all season. He's been deadly accurate. He's been killing it. Short, intermediate, deep ball, he's been killing it. And he's just been noticing everything. He's been destroying defenses. Even in the games we've lost, he's played well. And he knows where he's going with the football. He doesn't put the ball in danger. He knows exactly what he's seeing out there. So he's watching film. He's watching the defense. He's making his pre-snap decisions. He's doing everything. So at the end of the day, in terms of beating Spags' defense, that's a Lamar thing. Lamar is going to have to go into the film room and watch every single game he's played against Spags. And watch what Spags' defense has done to him from the film room. Learn their tendencies in terms of how they like to play him specifically, and then go out there and beat it. So that's a Lamar thing. But my concern is the defense versus Mahomes. That's where my problems come in. We got too many teams trying to tank. I mean, this is what it is. A lot of these teams are 2-win teams. Obviously, they're going to tank. And when you're a 3-win team at this point, you're probably also looking to tank. We had the defense to win it all last year. We fumbled the bag. Yep, and you're not getting that back. So good luck this year. Good luck this year. It is what it is at the end of the day. We'll be fine if we don't call a zero blitz. Oh, trust me, they're going to call a zero blitz. We've seen it so many times. We've seen it so many times where we're actively watching Zachary Orr call a zero blitz. He did that 3 straight times against Jameis Winston. And arguably, it could have worked if arguably it should have worked. Not could have. It should have worked. But Kyle Hamilton dropped the ball. So, you live with it. You live with it. But yeah, that's pretty much all that needs to be said. I don't really have much to really say about this. The trade deadline comes and goes. You got what you got. I don't know what else to really tell you. You don't have a pass rush. So you just have to rely on the guys you have and just hope for the best. Dan Orlovsky, his reaction to this was pretty much my reaction when Tre'Davious White's trade happened. He was like, oh, because I think Schefter was giving the report that the Ravens traded for Tre'Davious White for virtually nothing. And I was like, oh, they got Tre'Davious White. Cool. That's great. Are they going to trade for a pass rusher? Because that's what their actual problem is. Man points that out. I'm just like, damn, that's the exact reaction I had. So now they don't trade for a pass rusher. Now you look at Baltimore and say, are you sure they can beat the Chiefs? Because DeAndre Hopkins is balling out. And Mahomes, if you give him time, he's just going to beat you. Are you sure this defense can get it done? And that's a very fair question to ask. Are you sure this defense can hold up against Mahomes? In week 1, they made mistakes that ultimately cost them. They've become a worse defense since week 1. And the Chiefs are going to become better now that you have DeAndre Hopkins. So their offense is going to be better. It's still not an explosive offense, but boy, do they do things right when they need to, and they're very consistent. The biggest issue with the Ravens is they're an up and down team. And I might make another stream or another video to explain the biggest differences between the Ravens, the Bills, and the Chiefs, and why the Chiefs keep winning while the Bills and the Ravens keep failing. But yeah, they got DeAndre Hopkins now. Good luck with this. Diop balled out against a bum Tampa defense. Pump the brakes. It's Mahomes and DeAndre Hopkins. You can do whatever you want to say balled out against this defense. Pump the brakes and this and that. Come January, when they have the chemistry, D-Hop has the capability of winning one-on-ones against anybody. And with the way we've seen Brandon Stevens play, if Brandon Stevens is going to be the one, which he will be, if Brandon Stevens is the one that's paired up against DeAndre Hopkins, Hopkins can 100% win that matchup. Brandon Stevens has been terrible in coverage this year. He's been terrible in coverage this year. He's had a couple games where he's had good moments, but overall, he has not been good in coverage this year. D-Hop can certainly beat him. And if D-Hop and Mahomes get that connection, it will be problematic. You guys never see the signs until it beats you at the end. And that's well, you guys aren't playing, but you never see the signs until it costs the team the game. The signs are clearly there, but you want to ignore it. The signs are clearly there, but you want to ignore it. Marlon will be on D-Hop. You got to hope to God he is. You got to hope to God. But if you've noticed, a lot of these, there's been plenty of time where we've watched Brandon Stevens on the top receivers, and they've put the number 2 guy on Marlon Humphrey. For no reason. For no reason. For no reason. Which, again, has been interesting. I feel like this should be a year where you really have to make that switch. If Marlon's going to play like this, I feel like he legitimately should be the one taking the number 1 receivers. But if you've watched, there's been plenty of times throughout this season where we've watched Marlon Humphrey be on the field, and yet the person that's guarding the number 1 receiver is Brandon Stevens. I don't know what to tell you, man. Brandon Stevens was guarding Cortland Sutton like a bunch last week. Humphrey was on the field, but Sutton was being guarded by Stevens. If you've watched this year, a lot of the top tier receivers, the number one receivers on teams, is literally been guarded by Brandon Stevens. Then when they go to Marlon Humphrey, when they decide to switch it up, and all of a sudden Marlon Humphrey's on that receiver, they don't do anything. Dude, Jamar Chase was being covered by Brandon Stevens. We saw Brandon Stevens get cooked over and over again by Jamar Chase. What ends up happening when Jamar Chase gets matched up at the top of the screen with Marlon Humphrey? Marlon Humphrey picks off Burrow. I don't know what's going on here, but for some reason this year, they've decided to just let Brandon Stevens guard the number one wide receiver. And they're letting Marlon Humphrey guard wide receiver too. I don't know why. So when everyone's sitting there and bringing up Marlo will shut him down and Marlo will shut D-Hop, my question is, are you sure Marlo's even going to be guarding D-Hop? Because the way the Ravens defense has been working, they have specifically put Brandon Stevens on their best receiver. So are you sure D-Hop is going to be guarded by Marlon Humphrey? Are you sure it's not going to be Brandon Stevens? Because following the trend of how they've played this year, the best receiver has been guarded by Brandon Stevens. Who was guarding Mike Evans before he got hurt? Brandon Stevens. Who was guarding Jamar Chase for much of that Bengals game? Brandon Stevens. Who was guarding Sutton last week? Brandon Stevens. Matter of fact, where's the numbers? Where are the numbers? Let me pull this up. I don't know if I took a picture of it or I liked it or whatever. I legitimately, there was the numbers last week. I don't know if I'll find it though too. Man, I wish I would have liked that. I don't know if I liked it or bookmarked it, or maybe I just didn't. But it was there. Nah, I don't see it here. Man, I gotta start saving some of those posts. It'd be a lot easier if I could do that. Either way, there was a stat that was showing how each secondary player performed, and Brandon Stevens gave up the most yards because he was on Cortland Sutton, because he was getting cooked by Cortland Sutton. They're letting him guard the best receivers, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, he's just going to look like trash. There it is. They were talking about the coverage. In terms of coverage, last week against Denver, Brandon Stevens was the guy that was mainly guarding Cortland Sutton. So in terms of coverage, Stevens was targeted 8 times. It gave up 5 catches for 95 yards. Hamilton was targeted 4 times in his matchup, gave up 4 catches for 14 yards. Marlon Humphrey was targeted 4 times, gave up 2 catches for 23 yards. Simpson, in his matchup, was targeted 3 times, gave up 2 catches for 34 yards. Anthony Millette was targeted 3 times, 1 catch, 5 yards. Washington was targeted twice, no catches, and got that pick. Wiggins was targeted once, gave up 1 catch for 9 yards. And Marcus Williams was targeted once, that was that 2-yard touchdown that happened. So Brandon Stevens is actively getting picked on. If you go on a week-to-week basis, Brandon Stevens has been consistently picked on because he's the guy that's getting the matchup with the number one receiver. So when you guys are sitting here and telling me Marlo's going to be the one to stop D-Hop, my question and my retort is, are you sure Marlo's going to be the one guarding him in the first place? Because with the way the Ravens defense has been playing this year, they've let Brandon Stevens take the best receiver. So I would not be surprised if all of a sudden you see Brandon Stevens taking DeAndre Hopkins for absolutely no reason. And if it's Brandon Stevens versus D-Hop, we know how that's going to end. Oh yeah, week 2, who was guarding Devontae Adams? Brandon Stevens. So again, you guys can tell me Marlo's going to be on D-Hop. Are you sure? Because every top tier receiver we've gone up against has been lined up against Brandon Stevens. Why? I don't know. Go ask them. I would prefer your number 2. I prefer Marlowe to be guarding the number 1 receiver and Stevens to guard the number 2 receiver, but I don't know why. But if you look at the numbers, they have actively been covered. He's been actively covering wide receiver ones, and quarterbacks have been actively targeting him, and they've found success. That's an adjustment they got to make. When Stevens is getting cooked, they need a switch. How about you just start the game by not putting him on the number 1 receiver and then see what Marlowe's doing? If Marlowe's actively struggling, then you make that adjustment. But Marlowe should be on the number 1 receiver immediately. Like, there's no reason why Brandon Stevens should be covering the number 1 receiver. But it's happening. It's absolutely happening. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's like it'd be scripted how they put our players in the wrong spots on purpose at times. What else is new, man? It's the same old, same old. I just wish if it was scripted, they would actually give the Ravens a chance. I'm just saying the Lamar Jackson ring would feed generations. Like, that would be a hell of a storyline. Why wouldn't the scriptwriters want that? What type of deal did they make with Mahomes to say he has to be the one to get rings? I'm just saying, scriptwriters, cook something. Do you understand how hype it would have been in Vegas if you would have got Baltimore and Detroit? We would have had pimps. You would have legitimately had pimps in Vegas if it was Baltimore and Detroit in the Super Bowl last year. We would have legitimately had pimps. Do you know what type of storylines you could have created with that? Oh my God. Pimping would have been up 200% if it would have been Ravens Lions in the Super Bowl in Vegas last year. Oh my goodness, it would have been fun. So I don't know what the scriptwriters are doing. They picked the same old story that nobody wanted to see. Instead of picking Baltimore and Detroit. Like, you couldn't have made storylines, man. HaHa Davis would have been having so much fun. He would have been making skits at the Super Bowl. We could have had so much. Oh my God, the scriptwriters don't know what they're doing, man. They're a bunch of old heads. Ravens defense not so good. Hey, man, you got to deal with what you got to deal with. There's nothing we can do now. There's nothing we can do now. I've noticed they keep Marlowe close to the slot middle now. I think it's to make up lost ground because of how slow Smith is now. Part of that is the case. But part of that's the case because they're trying to do everything they can to help Roquan Smith. Instead of making the adjustment of just having Trenton Simpson be the guy in coverage, they keep having Roquan be out there in coverage. But it is what it is. But yeah, they're keeping him to the slot to help out. But at the same time, they're keeping him at the slot because Marlon Humphrey in the slot is the best corner in football. Marlon Humphrey in the slot is the best corner in football. Now, when you play him outside, he's still a damn good corner. But he can get beat at times. If you play him on the outside, he can get beat at times. But when you play Marlon Humphrey in the slot, he's arguably the best corner in football. It's not even. The reason why you see him right now as a top 5 corner is because of him playing in the slot. He's one of the best, if not the best, corners in football when he plays in the slot. When he plays outside, he's still a damn good corner, but there'll be times where he can get caught lacking. Looking like likely will be out with a hammy versus the Bengals Thursday night. That's fine. You'll just rely on your receivers. And if there's any time for Deontay Johnson to play, it'd be now. If there's no Isaiah Likely, Deontay Johnson, pull up. We need you now. Man, there would have been a lot of guys that would have fit. There would have been a lot of... Hey, man. Jesus, there would have been a lot of guys that would have fit. It is what it is. Hey. With what money? The funny thing is everyone keeps saying with what money for some of these major trades while forgetting that we've seen other teams with little to no cap space still make those trades. And with what money? You do realize they can easily just restructure contracts to get the money needed to make those moves. If other teams can do it and we're watching other teams do it, why can't we? We've watched Philadelphia make moves they shouldn't be making and still afford that. We've watched Kansas City make moves that they shouldn't be able to afford doing, and they do it. But for some reason with the Ravens, we always ask with what money, as if we can't restructure contracts. Players have to accept the restructure. Well then, I would assume players that are trying to win a championship would be willing to do so. Why is it that guys in Philly can accept it and guys in Kansas City can accept it, but guys in Baltimore can't when we've promoted a brotherhood? We have promoted a brotherhood in Baltimore, but you're telling me they can't accept restructures. Yet guys in Kansas City and Philadelphia can. All I'm saying is if you talk to these players and you're telling them you're going to get a bona fide guy that can help them out, I think players legitimately be willing to legitimately accept a restructure to do so. So you would rather lose great players, plural, for one great player? How would you be losing great players if you're restructuring? Are you saying losing great players in the future? Are you speaking in terms of long terms or short terms? Because you wouldn't be losing them in the short term. You might be losing them in the long term if you restructure their deal, depending on how much money you lose. Because someone's going to want their money. Buddy, you're trying to win a Super Bowl now. You are actively trying to win a Super Bowl now. If you can go get a great player that can help, and y'all keep saying you have to think long-term as a franchise. I understand thinking long-term as a franchise when you're a team that's trying to either rebuild or a team that's trying to build yourself long-term. But if you're a team that's actively trying to win a Super Bowl, the focus should be doing everything you can to get a Super Bowl. We watched the Rams put everything on the line to go get their ring because they wanted to get a championship. And it worked out. It worked out. And in the long run, they have suffered some losses. But despite that, they've still been a team that's been able to get to the playoffs and compete. The Rams took a risk and gave up big pieces to get big players that would help them win a ring. What ended up happening? They won a championship. They took those risks to get big names to LA, and it resulted in them getting a championship. Did they take some hits due to that? Yes, but it hasn't stopped them from being competitive. They were a playoff team last year. And guess what? With the way they look right now, they could still be a playoff team this year. Even with all the hits they've taken, with all the injuries, with some of the players they've lost. Sometimes you have to be able to take that risk. You keep looking at the long term. If you keep looking at the long term, you'll continue to look at the long term and you'll never win anything, but you'll stay competitive long term. Is the goal to win a ring, or is the goal to be good enough to compete long term, but not get over the hump? When the Tre'Davious White trade works out, I don't want to see y'all on the bandwagon. That's great. You guys always like to do this. Nobody said that was a bad thing. You got Tre'Davious White for virtually free. Nobody said it was bad. Nobody said the Deontay Johnson one was bad. See, I get y'all fans always piss me off with some of these things. Nobody came here and said the Deontay Johnson trade was bad. I was one of the first that gave credit to him. I said, good job, Eric DeCosta. You finessed the team and got a receiver for practically free. I gave EDC credit and say, you got a wide receiver and lost nothing. You finessed the Panthers and you addressed the wide receiver depth we needed. With Tre'Davious White, I also gave credit. I said, you finessed another team and filled a depth piece that we needed. We needed depth at wide receiver. We got the depth for virtually nothing. We needed depth at corner. We got it for virtually nothing. I gave EDC credit for both of those decisions. I didn't say that was bad. I gave the man credit for both those decisions. But I also said, you've got to address the main issue of pass rush. We can't get to the quarterback. If you can't get to the quarterback, you make the entire defense's job 1,000 times harder. We can't get to the quarterback. Our biggest issue is pass rusher. You got to go address it. They didn't address it. So now if you're in a playoff game against Mahomes and you can't get to Mahomes, you don't think that can affect us potentially winning that game? You can't get to the quarterback. What is that going to do? You can't generate pressure in key situations. You cannot generate pressures in key situations. We can't get to the quarterback in key situations. We actively can't. We actively can't get to the quarterback in key situations. You've seen it throughout the season. We saw it with Jameis. We actively couldn't get to the quarterback in key situations. It's going to hurt you in the long run. Right now, the Ravens are the worst pass rush win rate team in the National Football League. I want to repeat this. The Ravens have one of the worst pass rush win rate in the National Football League. They're sitting at 24%. One of the worst pass rush rates in the National Football League. They cannot generate pressure when they need to in key moments. That matters. But we want to ignore that. An actual serious need. They can't get to the quarterback when they need to in big situations. But we will ignore that. If that comes back to bite you in January, so be it. One Super Bowl is not enough. Multiple Super Bowls is wanted and needed. But if you keep building this, you're doing the same thing. I get wanting to create more Super Bowls. But look at the Chiefs. Even when they're winning Super Bowls, they're never content. They're always adding to their team and taking those shots. Why can't we do the same? A dynasty keeps adding to their team when they need it. Why can't we do the same? If you're just content with competing, you can continue to be content with competing. And then when you don't win anything, we'll look back in the air and say, well, we were competitive with Lamar Jackson, but we'll have nothing to show for it. You'll watch a team like the Chiefs add a game changer consistently, even when they're winning. You'll watch them do that. You don't want to see the Ravens do that? And it's not like I'm saying the Ravens aren't adding pieces, because they do. But a lot of times, we're not watching them add a lot of huge game changers. Does that mean they haven't? Absolutely not. 2019, they added Marcus Peters. That was a game changer. 2022, they added, Roquan Smith. That was a game changer. In some cases, we can make an argument adding Calais Campbell to this team was a game changer for us when he was here. So they have added game changers. But in some moments, when they have an opportunity to go really get that game changer, for previous years, it was offense they needed to get that game changer. They didn't do it. They went into conversation to do it. They didn't do it. You'll see Kansas City pull it off. You won't see Baltimore pull it off. In the cases, it's hurt the team. It's hurt the team. It is what it is. We have a good enough team to win it all. All we have to do is not beat ourselves. I'm convinced you aren't real fans. Y'all are ungrateful. I always get these same things with these fans that never seem to understand the points we try to make. You always just seem like we're ungrateful for what we have. It's always, we got good enough to do this and we're good enough to do that. It's just got to not beat ourselves. I'm convinced you're not real fans. It's always the same thing. You will see a glaring weakness on the team. Us as fans pointing out this is a glaring weakness that can hurt the team in the long run. Us pointing that out and saying we want that glaring weakness to be addressed. It's not like it's going to be fixed. It's not going to be perfect. But we'll point out we need that glaring aspect to be fixed. When it doesn't get fixed, we sit back and we talk about it and say this could end up hurting us. You guys are the overly positive fans that will ignore all the problems and only want to talk about the good, never talk about the bad. You will come up here and sit back and say we're complaining, we're ungrateful. Then we get in a playoff game, and those weaknesses that we have ultimately cost us, and now all of a sudden you're one of the first people complaining. When it came to the wide receiver thing that people complained about for years, Lamar not having the receiver talent, y'all sat back and said, look at the offense we have with Greg Roman. They're top 5 in this, they're top 10 in that. Even though the passing isn't great, look how efficient Lamar is. Look at this. We've got the best quarterback in this, and that. Then we get into a playoff game. Those receivers can't get any separation. They're not getting open. We put up 3 points in the playoff game, and now all of a sudden, it's like, man, these receivers can't do this. This receiver can't do that. We lost the game because our receivers weren't good enough. Lamar doesn't have enough help. He doesn't have enough help. Other than Mark Andrews, who can we trust? For years, the Ravens fan base said the exact same thing. For years, the Ravens fans have said the exact same thing about the receiving corps. Us the fans, we come out October, November, we sit back and we talk about the Ravens got to go get a legit number 1 receiver for Lamar Jackson. They got to go get a legitimate receiver for Lamar Jackson. Some of y'all come out and say, why do we need to go get that? We've got the best running game in football. Lamar Jackson's the dynamic quarterback. Greg Roman's offense is top 5 in this and top 10 in that. We're putting up nearly 30 points a game with Lamar. We don't really need the receiver. We got to make sure we get this, and that. Then we get into the playoffs. We don't get the receipt. We end up losing. And then all of a sudden, bam, Lamar doesn't have enough help. The receiver's this, and that. I never heard nobody say it. Buddy, you ain't been on my channel. I've been hearing this for years. Maybe I'm not going to say you. Maybe you haven't seen it because I don't know how you are on social media. I've seen this for years. The people that have been on my chat have seen this for years. Well, we'll point out there's an issue that needs to be addressed. Fans will come out and say we're being ungrateful because of what we're seeing right now currently during the regular season. Come playoff time, the same thing we talked about that wasn't addressed ultimately cost us, and then a bunch of fans that were already sitting here in November saying it's not a problem, now all of a sudden it's a problem. This has been a case. The chat can back me up for years on my channel. For years on my channel I had that. You may have not seen that. I've seen it for years. So when it comes down to this situation with the pass rush, it's no different. It's no different for me. It's no different. So me saying the exact same thing with the pass rushing unit that I've said for receiver and other aspects, it's no different. So if this pass rushing unit, having virtually no pass rushing key situations, if it comes to cost them come January, guess what? So be it. So be it. It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. But it's fine, because anytime we bring this up, we're not real fans and we're complaining and we're ungrateful. Then when the playoffs come and we lose, all of a sudden we want to blame these guys. Oh, this guy didn't step up, or Lamar didn't have this or that. It's the endless cycle. The fans feed into the same nonsense that the Ravens give y'all every single year, and when it doesn't work out, you're ready to blame people and say this guy's got to get fired, that guy's got to get fired. It's the endless cycle. We may end up dealing with that again in January. And I'll be right here when the same things happen again. It is what it is. Sad part is, I don't want it to be this way. Every single time, I'm actively rooting for the Ravens to prove me wrong. For years, I've actively hoped that the Ravens would prove me wrong. And they failed to do so. I'm the one that said years ago they're not winning a Super Bowl with John Harbaugh as our head coach. The same idiot things he was doing. And I've pointed out the same dumb things because people think I'm just saying the Lamar Jackson era. I watched this guy. Watch this guy as our head coach. When we blew 2, I'm not joking. I sat here, back when I wasn't even on YouTube. I sat down, watched us blow not 1, but 2 14-point leads in Foxborough in a playoff game and lose. Harbaugh as the head coach. No adjustments made. I watched that happen. I watched this defense give up a touchdown in 2016 against the Pittsburgh Steelers with the division on the line on Christmas. I watched it with me, my mother, my father, my sister, and my aunt. I watched this defense with a minute left in a game when Flacco gets you the lead because Kyle Juszczyk runs into the end zone. We score a touchdown, take the lead. On Christmas, I watched this defense. Blow it. No adjustments made. A timeout could have been called. Sharice Wright was getting cooked over and over again. Ben Roethlisberger was watching Sharice Wright get cooked over and over again. He kept throwing to his side. No timeout was called. No adjustment was made. Did you stop the clock? Did you do something there? Nothing was made. We lose that game. I watched the very next year on New Year's Eve. Before I went to a New Year's Eve party, I watched them blow it on the 4th and 12. But to forget about the 4th and 12, I watched them in a do-or-die game. I watched them go down 17 points at home. They didn't show up to play. This has always been a hardball thing. You can sit back and say, I'm always being negative. The Ravens do the same thing over and over again. They find a way to disappoint you the same way over and over again under this guy. Y'all can choose to ignore it, and y'all be the same ones crying and complaining come January. Then you'll look at Lamar and say he can't get it done. Lamar's a choker. He's the reason we can't do it. It's the same thing. And fans have seen this for years. I've prayed that they would finally prove me wrong. Because I'm tired of so many people coming on this channel. I'm tired of all these fans coming here talking about Lamar being a choker, talking about this Ravens team being a choker, yada, yada, yada. I'm tired of dealing with it. And I'm tired of the Ravens fans, or people that claim that they're Ravens fans, sitting back and trying to say Lamar can't. I've watched people 5 times over on my streams come up and say we should have kept Flacco and all this stuff about Flacco. I dealt with this for years. This isn't something that came up out of nowhere. I've been on YouTube for 6 years doing this. 6 years of dealing with Ravens fans and non-Ravens fans doing the exact same thing. I've dealt with this for years. And I've also watched my team for years lose football games the same way under Harbaugh. The same way. I've watched them fail to make moves that they could have made. I've watched Harbaugh lose games the exact same way. I've watched his decision-making cost us in key situations. I've done this the same way. Crying over spilled milk is crazy. It's the same head coach that's been doing the same thing for years. It's the same head coach that's been doing the same thing. So how am I not saying crying over spilled milk like it's not still happening is crazy? Did we not see this guy make some of these mistakes this year? Did we not see Harbaugh making some of the same mistakes? Some of the idiotic decisions with his challenges this year. He was doing that back in 2014. So the guy's been here for 16 years, and it's the same thing he's been doing for 16 years. So saying crying over spilled milk when he's still making those mistakes even this season that's cost us games is crazy. He's done the same thing. He's done the same thing. So why be a fan or make videos if you know nothing will change on the Harbaugh, bro? Because I've been a fan of this team since 2005. I'm not interested in going to watch another team. I became a Ravens fan with Ed Reed. I'm always going to root for my team. What you guys don't understand is you can root for your team and also point out the aspects. I've always said this. The simplest thing you can do as a fan is root for your team. The simplest thing you can do as a fan is hope your team wins a Super Bowl every year. That's the simplest thing you can do. But that doesn't mean you have to turn a blind eye and pretend you don't see the issues with your team. We all see it. You don't have to turn a blind eye to it. You can address it, but you can still hope they get it fixed. I always address the issues with the Ravens in the hopes that they fix it. I always address the issues with the Ravens in the hopes that they can fix it. I never sit here and say these same things with the assumption that they're never going to fix it. I always address the issues the Ravens have with the hopes that at some point they're going to get it together, figure it out, or fix it. I always do that. I always do that. Nothing's changed. I've been doing that for years. Ravens fans say Lamar's a choker. Buddy, you haven't been on some of these streams after the playoff losses. You have not been on some of I know you're new here, so you probably don't know how things operate. You have not been on this channel when we have lost some of those playoff games. Whew. The way Ravens fans go at it. Yes, they have said it. After playoff losses, when everybody's emotions are high, I've seen so many comments about it. And then to make matters worse, they'll say it, and then the other fans will watch those Ravens fans say it, and they'll press extra hard, and I got to deal with that crap. Oh, man. Oh, man. I've seen it for years on my streams after playoff losses. Ravens offense in playoffs go completely mind-blowing off the plans and get lost. I don't know why. I don't know why this is an issue. It shouldn't be a problem, but it is. Lamar Jackson saved Harbaugh's job. Absolutely. He absolutely has, and we've pointed out for years. Remember the Greg Roman defenders back in the day? Those were terrible. Oh, my God. No matter how bad the offense was, no matter how much they couldn't really do much in the passing game, people looked at the number of total yards on offense because of the running game being overwhelming. They looked at the total number of yards on offense and just assumed everything was fine with the offense. It was bad. Our salary cap always in shambles, but other teams make a way. I get your point, bro. We suck at management on the importance of success to win it all. It's been about 12 years. We still can't get it right. I don't think everything the Ravens have done from a front office perspective is bad. I don't think that's the case. I think they've made some great moves. I've always been very fair with this. I talk about the good and I talk about the bad. I talk about the good and I talk about the bad. I've never been here and only talked about the negative. I talk about the negative and I talk about the positive. The people that think our front office is complete garbage, I disagree with that because I think they've made a lot of great moves. Like I've pointed out, perfect example, Marcus Peters, he was needed for that year. Roquan Smith was needed for the defense. I think they've made some good moves. I never thought the front office has been bad or management has been bad. But I'm going to point out the positive and the negatives, their success and their failures. I point out everything. I'm objective with how I talk about this team. So you've been complaining for years then? I started this channel in 2018. No. But if you just see me as a complainer, you're just the type of fan that just supports your team, thinks positive, ignores the negative. That's just who you are as a fan. I'm not like that. If you don't like it, that's cool. That's just who you are as a person. That's who I am as a person. I look at the positive and the negative. That's what I do. I talk about this team on this channel. I look at the positive and I look at the negative. I'm not a happy-go-lucky fan that's just going to ignore all the problems. Well, we can't do this, and all these things are issues that can beat us in January, but I'm going to ignore that to just focus on the positive. I'm not like that. Maybe that's just who you are as a fan. Maybe that's who you are as a fan. So anytime you see Ravens fans talk about the negative, you just assume it's complaining. Maybe you as a fan just care to talk about the positive. I respect that. That's cool. That's who you are as a fan. That's not who I am as a fan. I look at the positive and give praise when praise is due, and I look at the negative and give criticism when criticism is due. I am objective and I'm fair. So I'll never be the aspect that's that person that's just a blind fan to my team and only look at the positive, ignore the negative. But I won't be that fan that just only looks at the negative and pretends that nothing good happens to the team. I'll never sit back and say this team sucks and it's a complete trash team that can't win anything. You'll never see me come on this channel and say the Ravens can't make the playoffs. Even when we were 0-2 and all the people on my chat were saying season was over, I sat back and said this team's going to make the playoffs because they're too damn good of a team to not make it. I had no panic when they were 0-2. I fully believed they'd be able to come back and make the playoffs. And right now they're on track to make the playoffs, as I expected. I talk about the positive and the negative. If you're a fan that wants to focus on the positive only, good on you. That's who you are as a fan. That's not me. If we really got another head coach, will we really be as good as we are now? First of all, I've always said with the head coaching thing, you would have to make that move in the offseason. Because you can't make that move mid-season. Everyone's been talking about fire Harbaugh mid-season. I've always said that's not the move to make. You go and look for another head coach in the offseason. That's number one. Number two, will we be really as good as we are now? That's a debatable question. I mean, that's a fair question, and that's very debatable whether or not we'd be good or not. If you look at the roster and you look at the quarterback you have, you can make an argument we could, and you can make an argument we can't. The aspect that we're willing to be content with the coach we've had for 16 years, when this very same, that's the funny thing about it. Some of y'all will go to bat for Harbaugh and say, well, who else should we go to? But the same fans that y'all do, I'm not going to say the same fans. Some of y'all will be willing to go to bat and say, if we get another head coach, will we be better off? Are you sure that's the decision? If we move off of Harbaugh, who are we going to go to? Did y'all forget we used to have a Super Bowl winning head coach in Brian Billick? And we moved off of that Super Bowl winning head coach, who, by the way, won a Super Bowl without having a franchise quarterback. Brian Billick, because of that great defense, but Brian Billick was our head coach for our first ever Super Bowl. During the time he was the head coach for the Ravens, we never had a franchise quarterback. We had winning seasons and we made the playoffs and even won a ring with him, but we never had a franchise quarterback. He was a damn good coach, but the Ravens fired him. And you know what they did? They took a chance on a special teams coach. Harbaugh didn't have any history as an offensive coordinator. He didn't have any history as a defensive coordinator. John Harbaugh was a special teams coach. They took a chance on him. And what? Guess what? It worked out. So you're telling me they're willing to take a chance, a Super Bowl winning head coach, they're willing to fire and take a chance on a special teams coordinator, a young guy, special teams coordinator, never really had that position as not special teams coach, never had the position of offense or defensive coordinator. They took a risk on him and it worked. You're saying they can't do it again when you have a future Hall of Fame quarterback? You couldn't go to another guy potentially? Well, we're watching all around the league. We've seen some of these young offensive coordinators go on to be head coaches and it's worked out. You don't think it'd be nice or you don't think they'd be able to make it work? A great organization like the Ravens and with a great quarterback, a great team wouldn't be able to make it work with a new head coach? I think that's fair to ask, and I think at the same time you could look at points where he says, I don't think he'll make it, I don't think it can work, and I think there's points you could look and say it should be able to work because you have Lamar here. So root for the squad. You saying we're not going to do anything while John's here? I wholeheartedly disagree. I didn't say we weren't going to do anything. I said we weren't going to win a championship. I never said we couldn't get to a Super Bowl or get to an AFC title game. I said we were not winning a Super Bowl while John Harbaugh still here as the head coach. I said that years ago. Unless he changed his ways. And I've said this. I have said until either John is gone or John has changed his ways of how he does things, we're probably not going to win a Super Bowl with him. I've been on record saying that. You're so right, Bo. People don't like the truth when you call out the organization. That's why KC wins if they make the right moves. It is what it is. I think we can beat these teams as long as we don't beat ourselves. I think we have the players on offense and defense to win big games. I believe in Lamar and I believe in the defense. That's fine to have. That's a fine assessment to have. And as a fan, I hope it happens. And I believe in Lamar. And I believe this team has the capability of winning a championship. I absolutely believe that. But the statement you just made, I think we can beat these teams as long as we don't beat ourselves. That is the same statement Ravens fans have made for years now. How many games do you remember us losing where the takeaway wasn't that, man, we just got outclassed or we just got stomped or this was the better team? How many of those games ended where we said, man, we just beat ourselves today? Even in the AFC Championship game, many of us felt we beat ourselves because we didn't run the football. For how many years? I'm asking you legit. Go back as a Ravens fan. How many times can you remember, especially during the Lamar Jackson era, how many times can you remember us losing a game where the takeaway wasn't, we beat ourselves. How many of those games did you look at and say, man, we just got outclassed? The only games I can look at and say that are the Kansas City games. But how many losses can you really look at where the takeaway wasn't, we beat ourselves today? We beat ourselves. If we wouldn't have done this and this and that, we would have won. It's a pattern. So sitting back and saying we can beat these teams as long as we don't beat ourselves, that's what we've been saying for years. And it's cost us. It's been a repeated cycle. The cycle is not broken. Do I believe we can beat? I have been on record saying we can beat any team in the National Football League if we play our game. After entering the playoffs, I said we can get to the Super Bowl last year if we play our game. When we beat the Texans, I sat back and said, that's how we need to play against the Chiefs next week. If we play like that against Kansas City, they can't mess with us. What did we do? We beat ourselves. How many times over the last few years, how many times in Lamar Jackson era have we sat back and lost games and at the end of the day we said, we beat ourselves? If we didn't beat ourselves, we would have won. You looked at the game against the Browns. We beat ourselves there. If we don't drop those 5 picks, we destroy the Browns. The Raiders game, we were up 10. We beat ourselves there. How many times are we going to continue to say these same statements? This team has the capability to win a Super Bowl. You've got the quarterback. You've got one of the best quarterbacks in the game today and a future Hall of Famer. You've got one of the best, if not the best running back in football today and another future Hall of Famer. You've got great weapons on offense. You've got some nice weapons on defense. And if the defense can get themselves together, they can certainly be a team that can stop any offense in the playoffs. But how many times have we said that and we end that statement with, we can win if we don't beat ourselves? And then the games happen and we beat ourselves. At some point, you do start to look at the coach if the team is consistently beating themselves. I watch your channel a lot throughout the years, but I'm surprised you're coming off this negative right now. It's plenty to be optimistic about. I never said I wasn't optimistic. Did I declare the season over? No matter how negative my sound has been, I have never once declared the season over. I'm the same person that sat here in week 2 after that embarrassing loss against the Raiders. I sat back here, told everybody to relax. We don't need to lose. It was a bad loss. We blew a 10-point lead. Everybody relax. People were going through the chat and saying, season's over. We're 0-2. How are we going to beat the Bills? How are we going to beat the Bengals? People said, and I sat back and said, listen, we're 0-2 right now. It's not a good look, but look at the next 3 games. Dallas, Buffalo, Cincinnati. I believe we can win all 3 of those games. If we go 3-0, we'll be 3-2. What was our record last year through 5 games? 3-2. If we complete the trifecta, we'll be back on track. I said that after we're 0-2, and that's exactly what the Ravens ended up doing. What you guys don't like is when I talk about the negative aspect. You're all here for the positive aspect. But as soon as I talk about the negative aspect of the team, we don't want to hear it. And I get it. No one wants to hear their team getting quote-unquote bashed or speaking on the negative aspect of the team. You always want to talk about good things because the media is constantly focusing on some of the negative aspects of the team. I get it. But it's my job to be fair. I can't just come off here and speak on only the positive and ignore the negative. I can't do that. That's not being fair. I have to talk about both sides. Now, you guys got to understand, while I am talking about both sides, I'm not making a declaration. Football's still happening. I may have these aspects and takes about the team, but that doesn't mean I still don't believe they can win the championship. If I truly believe, if I sat here and truly believe the Ravens don't have a shot to win the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be wasting my time talking about them. I wouldn't. I absolutely believe they can, and I want them to. I have so many receipts that I'm ready to pull up the second this team wins a championship. But I see things that's going to stop us from doing it, and I point it out. That's what I've always done on this channel. Y'all just don't like it when I speak on the negative aspect. When I'm sitting here hyped up, let's go! Did you see it? Lamar Jackson MVP! Oh my God, Derrick Henry, the best running back! All hail King Henry! You love when I do that. But when I come here and say, man, this defense stinks. The pass rush can't do this. Corner's getting cooked. I don't know if Zachary was the guy. Now you push back. You have to take the positive with the negative. If you're here for just the positive, by all means, take the positive with the positive. But I'm not going to just talk about one side of it and not address the other side. I've always been fair and objective. You don't have to like the negative, but I'm going to speak on the negative because I speak on the positive. That's how it's always been. That's a coaching issue if we go off script. It's been a consistent thing. So it is what it is. I agree with the Harbaugh take, but I don't know if we would be this good if we had a new head coach. Assessment's fair. I think it depends on the head coach you get. I think it's a fair statement, but it depends on who you get. Maybe you get a guy that takes it above and beyond. People thought maybe Mike Macdonald could have been the head coach. And maybe we're better off with Mike Macdonald and maybe we're worse off. Who knows? The front office is not as good as Philly or in Kansas City. That's fair. I don't think I've ever sat back and said a front office was better than those two. Who do you expect us to get? Do you think either Tre'Davious Smith or Lattimore was affordable? No, I didn't think they'd get Tre'Davious Smith, and I didn't think they'd get Marshawn Lattimore. I was the one that was saying you can at least try to see if you can go get Calais Campbell. I'd say that's more of the Ravens' tone. I argued go get Clowney, but I knew that, Carolina probably wasn't going to give up Clowney. I said Clowney is a possibility, and I said try to see if you can go get Calais Campbell from the Dolphins because their season's probably done. I mentioned things that are very affordable. I never thought that Tre'Davious Smith was going to come here. They weren't going to trade in division. The fans that thought that, I told them just stop thinking that. I never even thought we would get Lattimore. I never even said we would. That's just how it is. Ravens fans are the only fan base that has fans that will bash their own two-time MVP quarterback. The Bills, Bengals, Chargers, their fans wouldn't even dare try that. Our fans have tried to bash Lamar every time we've lost a playoff game. It is what it is. Y'all got to look past the draft picks. Both Smith and Lattimore came with multi-year contracts and money owed over the next couple of years. We aren't in the financial place to be able to afford that. And that's a fair statement. I never sat back and said we were going to get Tre'Davious Smith or Marshawn Lattimore. Go check. I never said we were going to get those guys. I've been very fair with this. The people that were saying that online on social media, I said that's probably not going to happen. But if you want to try to go get one of those guys and you wanted to be aggressive and do something off script, you would have to make the money work. Which, again, they could make the money work. It wouldn't be easy, but they could make the money work if they wanted to do it. It would just be a complicated process, and the Ravens don't like that. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care for DeCosta. He makes some good moves. Does he make some good moves? Yes, but we haven't won a Super Bowl with him leading the pack. At the end of the day, I mean, some of that has to come on Harbaugh in his coaching. Is it DeCosta's fault that the team moves away from what works in an AFC Championship game, or is it Harbaugh, the head coach, that does it? That's a big decision. Great head coaches are like quarterbacks. You don't get them every year. And that's fair. But sometimes you do have to be willing to take the risk if you're not seeing the results you want to get. You have a future Hall of Fame quarterback. If you can't at least get to the Super Bowl, that's going to be a bad look on everybody. And if you're consistently falling short in the playoffs, at some point you got to look at why. And if we're watching it and we're watching them lose and it's all because they're consistently failing to either show up to play or they're consistently going into playoff games where they're not playing the way they're doing. If we're walking away from these playoff games saying the Ravens beat themselves consistently, that becomes a coaching issue, which is where you may have to look to move on from another coach. At the end of the day, you can say whatever you want. It hurts and it took time, but Philly moved off from Andy Reid at some point. It took them a while. It took them 5 years, but they got a Super Bowl once they got Doug Peterson. Bill Belichick's no longer New England. At some point, they will move off of great head coaches. These things happen. It could be a positive. It could be a negative. You never know how it's going to go. I appreciate your stand. I also understand that the team couldn't make it happen. Any player that's worth his salt would have a contract we couldn't handle. It was definitely not about the draft picks. I knew they weren't going to get him in the first place. So it is what it is. Purple City, wait to the playoffs. Sorry, wait. Let's see. Purple City, wait to the playoffs, and then when we lose, people go. It is what it is. It is what it is. See, that's where you're not mentioning the facts. Bill was not Biscotti's guy. John was selected by Biscotti to gain control of the locker room versus Bill. Now that becomes the Steve Biscotti thing, because now you're moving off of a Super Bowl winning head coach to bring in a guy that's not known to come run your team. And it worked out. Which also, that funny enough, you bring that up. That comes up to another take that a lot of Ravens fans have had, that Biscotti doesn't actually seem to really care about winning a championship. He just wants to have a good product in Baltimore to make money. So that brings up a different conversation. But I'm not opening up that Pandora's box today. Any available player that would have actually made an impact wouldn't be affordable. That's fair. They wouldn't have been affordable. But we've seen teams make it work. The Eagles have added a lot of talent, and, their salary cap is looking nasty, but they've made it work. Kansas City has been able to add whoever they want, no matter how their salary cap has looked, and they've made it work. I'm not saying it wouldn't be easy, but the Ravens can make it work. It just depends on if they want to go through that complicated stuff, and they've shown they don't want to. If it doesn't fit within their cap space to the point where they don't have to make a bunch of restructures, they're not going to do it. Bro, I'm so glad you're speaking on this. This is what it is. We're going to see this season. Yeah, all I'm saying is anybody that has this take now that's going to ignore this, please, at the end of the day, we all sit here as Ravens fans and we hope and pray they win the Super Bowl. I 100% hope and pray the Ravens win the Super Bowl. But for the individuals that are defending all this stuff, please do not change your mind if they don't win in January. Do not come back in January getting pissed off, blaming the players, the coaches, or saying EDC should have made a move. Okay? If the pass rush ends up costing us in January, please do not get mad. I hope it doesn't cost us. For everything that I've been saying, I'm not hoping for this team's downfall. I don't want this team to lose. I wouldn't be talking about a team I don't care about. I hope this team wins. I honestly do. I hope this team wins a championship. I want all the receipts I have saved for all those Lamar Jackson comments. I'm ready to unleash them. The second they win the ring, it's going to be a whole week. I'm going to do segments on this channel just going through those receipts of everyone that said he couldn't win a Super Bowl. I'm waiting for that moment. So I want them to win. Me pointing out the issues that could cause them to lose is not me just being a negative aspect or complaining. It's me addressing some of the things that could hurt us. It's a legitimate thing that could cost us. And we can't ignore that. I do this because we got to give context. Because when we lose in the playoffs, nobody wants to hear context from us. It's all, let's blame Lamar. That's how it's been for years now. Nobody wants to give context. I'm willing to give context about everything, positive and negative. Positive and negative. That game was BS from the start. Refs won BS. Man, the refs have always been on BS no matter what. You can't let the refs affect you. The only time I give that aspect while looking at it is if the refs affect like the last play of the game. At the end of the day, you're going to have opportunities to win. You got to go out there and win it. How many times did y'all heard Harbaugh take blame for his faults? I'm waiting. I ain't going to talk about that, man. I'm going to leave it to you. I never said you were wrong. I'm just shocked you were being this critical when the offense is like that right now. Lamar knows what he's going up against, bro. But it's a team game, dude. We know what Lamar's going up against, but it's a team game. I've always been team game. I hate when people give all the credit to Lamar when we win, and I hate when people give all the criticism to Lamar when we lose. It's a team game. I've watched other teams have dynamic offenses and terrible defenses lose in the playoffs. Do you remember the 2017 Steelers? The Killer Bees were monstrous. But their defense was a problem. They struggled to stop the run, and their secondary was iffy. We saw the cracks of that when they lost to the Jaguars. And guess what? Come playoff time, they lost to the Jaguars in the divisional round. I don't want that to happen to us because we see some of the cracks against the Raiders and the Browns. I don't want to be the 2017 Steelers where we have this elite dynamic offense, but the defense is a liability. I don't want that to be the case. We have an all-pro players at every level of the defense and have been banged up in key positions at several points of the year. If we can get healthy and stay healthy, I think we can make a run. I think, one, we got to get healthy. Two, we got to see guys perform better. Because we got a disconnect right now. A lot of people, again, including myself, I've been fair with them, but at times I've been critical of Zachary Orr and his play calling. But when you have Marlon Humphrey coming out and saying it's not Zachary Orr, it's the players on the field, we're not executing, then we have to at least take that with some consideration. Let this team get healthy, and if the defense cannot do their jobs and they're getting beat, I don't know if we can look at Zachary Orr. Now, for the people, for the other YouTubers, you can take a look at them. The guys that are breaking down the film and seeing some of the play calling and some of the defensive schemes, they're on Zachary Orr's head for that. I've been on his head in some cases in terms of some of the decision makings he's made and some of the coverages he's thrown out there, but I haven't been getting on his case the way some of these other guys are. So maybe it is a Zachary Orr problem, maybe it is an execution problem. I would love to see this team get healthy and see what they can do down the stretch defensively. I think that would be an interesting thing to see because we get a true assessment. But, you know, we don't know if that's going to be the case. We just got to hope they get healthy. Harbaugh got out-coached. Harbaugh has consistently gotten out-coached by both Tomlin and Andy Reid. It's the same. It's regular season, bro. Relax. Playoffs do not start tomorrow. We've said these same things for years now, man. These exact statements you're saying, we've said this for years now. Didn't we say this last year after we lost to the Browns? It's the regular season. Relax. The playoffs don't start tomorrow. They blew it. It was a bad loss against Deshaun Watson, but it was just one of those moments they just blew it, you know? Defenses have bad losses. We'll get over it. That was the same thing we said in the regular season. And we went on to win a bunch of games. I don't think we lost a single game after that one. But then in the AFC Championship game, some of those issues that we had, some of that kind of got exploited. We've said this for years now. It's the regular season, relax, playoffs don't start tomorrow. We don't need to be overly concerned about this. But we've seen this for years now. And every year is different. That's fair. Every year is different. But when we've seen this team on a regular basis, year in and year out, have the same issues that has cost them in the postseason in previous years, and we see them have those same issues that has cost them some regular season games that they have no reason losing, such as last year when they lost the Colts and the Browns, this year now the Raiders and the Browns. When we've seen some of those same issues, concerns are going to start coming up. What y'all got to understand is when it comes to the Ravens, they're a high-low team. They're a high-low team. Their highest of highs, they look better than anybody in the league. Their lowest of lows, they don't even look recognizable. That can cost you in the playoffs if you're too much of a high-low team, because we don't know what we're going to get from you on a week-to-week basis. This is things we've seen for years now. It's not like I'm saying anything new. We've seen this for years now. So, it's going to leave the fan base skeptical when the things we used to say and the things we were hoping wouldn't happen have happened consistently. And we find ourselves saying the same thing year in, year out. That now becomes insanity because we're saying and doing the same thing over and over again with nothing changing. That's insanity. So that's why people being skeptical is going to be something you're going to see more often, because we've seen this story before with the Ravens. Now we hope this story has a different ending, but we've seen this story with the Ravens before, which is why people will have this assessment. No one's saying they can't change their story. Everybody has the opportunity to write their story. That's what a legacy is about. You have a chance to change your legacy. Peyton Manning was seen as a playoff choke, and the Colts were seen as a regular season team that'll never get over the hump until they got over the hump. We're dealing with the exact same thing the 2000 Colts have been dealing with. That's why I've always called this the 2000 Colts. We're trying to get over the hump. Now, hopefully we do at some point. But until we do, those same issues we've had, they're going to creep up, and fans are going to speak up on it because they know those issues have cost us in previous years, and they don't want to see it cost us again this year. The best you can hope for is a pass rusher to get released and pick them up off waivers. I've seen some people hope that the Dolphins release Calais Campbell so we can pick him up, but I don't know if that's going to happen. We're not getting a pass rusher. We added 3 players this year: Unique, Deontay, and Tre'Davious. Yeah, that's what they have. So you just have to make it work. And if it doesn't work out for you, if you can't get to the quarterback come January, that is the decision you made, and you live with it. It is what it is. Me, I sat back and said, Lamar, you know how the team is. You know the assignment. You're going to have to score 30-plus points every playoff game to win. So if the defense can't get it done, it's up to the offense to carry. It is what it is. If Lamar wants that ring, go out there and put up 30-plus points in every playoff game and see if you can get the win. Bro, you're not being negative. What is it? People are not listening. It is what it is, bro. I mean, people have their own takes. It's fine. People have their own takes. I don't think it's an aspect. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. I don't think everyone's just looking at it and just assuming I'm automatically negative. I think they're just more so speaking on the aspect that I'm speaking. It's more of the aspect of what I'm speaking on as opposed to just me being a negative person, because I'm speaking on a topic that's not a fun thing. I'm speaking on a topic that's not a fun thing. And nobody wants to sit here and have to constantly hear about their team's downfall. Not their team's downfall, their team's negatives or their team's weaknesses or all this other stuff. No one wants to hear about that. So it is what it is. You speaking facts, bro. I'm just giving my honest thoughts, man. Who's mad? Everything you pointed out, I have been making my own videos and I have my own channel, bro. I'm not saying you're not being fair. I just dropped in the live and heard you were going in about the has this been No. The good news, Wait, did you just see it randomly because I started live streaming, or is this showing on Twitter? I'm gonna be honest, bro. I'm glad I don't really have much of a presence on Twitter, man. I do not need the Ravens flock seeing my takes on Twitter. Because anytime you show any level of negativity, oh, he's a fake fan. And I know how Twitter is. Twitter's a cesspool of nonsense. I don't want to deal with that. So hopefully none of these takes are going on Twitter, because I know they'll just bother me for no reason. Zachary Orr is not the guy. Well, there's nothing you can do right now. You can't get a new defensive coordinator. The only thing you can do is, if they truly don't believe he can get it done, you demote him and you promote Dean Pease. You have no choice to go anywhere else. After these moves are, it is what it is, man. I mean, people are not gonna like the moves because we didn't get a pass rusher. I personally feel if you would have got a pass rusher and nothing else, Ravens fans would have been happy. If you would have got a pass rusher and everything else, Ravens fans have nothing to complain about. But it is what it is. Our Ravens have to stop giving up the leads and dropping interceptions. We should have traded for Lattimore today. Big mistake. They weren't going to do that, man. They were not going to do that. The problem with Orr is you can see we're going to get cooked on defense pre-snap. There's a lot of things wrong with the defense. Harbaugh hired Zach Orr. I mean, Zach Orr was technically our linebackers coach. He hired them, but he wasn't doing a bad job as a linebackers coach. It's just he got promoted to be a defensive coordinator. And it's possible that he just wasn't ready. It's possible that he wasn't ready. The focus should be on staying/getting healthy and working out the kinks in the defense. Last week wasn't perfect, but they were signs of improvement. I can leave that there, Matt, because, I saw some posts on Twitter. And we're looking at some of those throws from Bo Nix, and if his accuracy was better, those are touchdowns. But I ain't going to get on that. However, I think I did say in my recap video they did play better. And I feel like for the defense, they have to regain their respect. I think they have to spend the rest of the season playing well defensively for people to have some trust in them. They've already broken the trust with how poorly they played. They have to spend the rest of the season making up for that. So, you take it week to week. I think this will be a huge week. These next few weeks will actually be good to see them actually prove themselves defensively. So it comes off of that. Trade deadline, I would trade both of these players for Calais Campbell any day. The Dolphins wouldn't want either one of these players, so you wouldn't be able to pull that off. Oi. Calais Campbell would have a bigger effect than either of these players. You don't know. You don't know how it would work out. Having a coaching change does not help your team at all mid-season unless it's within. And even then, not much changes. I've never been in agreement with changing your coach halfway through. If you're firing your head coach midway through the season, you've essentially given up on the season, in my opinion. Unless you get one of those miracle type situations with the 2021 Raiders where you still make the playoffs after firing your coach. If you're firing your coach, you're essentially bailing out on the season. So I've never been with agreement. If you're going to get a new head coach, you have to do it in the offseason. Never do it mid-season. Never do it mid-season. At some point, we're going to have to pass on offense. Derrick Henry still gets stopped early until the second half. The offense at the end of the day, they really got to play to their game. You're going to have to run the ball and with Derrick Henry. I think what they do in some cases has worked out. You run the ball early with Derrick Henry to see how the defense is going to play him. If you get early success with Derrick Henry, you know you can run the ball throughout the rest of the game. But if you're not getting early success with Derrick Henry, you know you got to lean more towards your pass game. As the game goes on, Derrick Henry will get more opportunities. You still stay true to running the ball with Derrick Henry, but you do start leaning on the pass game depending on... It just depends on what the defense gives you. The defense is going to commit to Derrick Henry, you know you're going to have to air it out. And there's going to be opportunities to air it out because they're committing to Derrick Henry. But if you're starting to get early lanes and you're seeing Derrick Henry go off early on, you know you can lean more towards your running game. It just depends on what defense gives you. Like Lamar says, they're creating a pick your poison offense. Maybe Miami wasn't willing to trade him. I've heard some reports that Miami was asking for a bit too much for Calais Campbell, and the Ravens weren't really interested in it. I heard some rumors, but I don't know how true they are, so I don't really look into that. It is what it is. He's going to be a Dolphin right now, so it is what it is. I'm pretty sure we left no stone unturned. I think we went with the best players we could have gotten. Maybe they could have got a pass rusher. Maybe they couldn't have. I don't know. I would have liked them to be a bit more aggressive to address that need because it's the main need. But they chose to stay put. And now you just got to hope the guys you have right now step up. Picking a cornerback is a good move. Pass rush going to have more time to get there. The thing with the secondary and pass rush always works with each other. If the pass rush is good and can put pressure on a quarterback, you make the secondary's job so much easier because they don't have to cover for 5+ seconds. At the same time, a good secondary can potentially give you an extra second or two, just to hold up a bit more, which gives you a better chance to get to them. It's not bad to pick up a cornerback, but when you have virtually no pass rush in key situations, it does start to hurt. And picking up Tre'Davious White, we'll see how that goes. He's not played well in the games he's played. In 4 games, he's given up 4 touchdowns. So I don't know how well he's going to fit into Baltimore as a depth piece, but we'll just have to wait and see. Let's see how much Deontay Johnson plays. He's probably going to get some time on Thursday because we don't know if Isaiah Likely's going to play. I think DJ will contribute in the big way. Not sure about Tre'Davious White. I don't know. Have to use him correctly. Line him up outside. Put Zay in the slot or Bateman in the slot and Zay on the outside at Z and have DJ. You can pretty much move Zay Flowers wherever you want. I think with Bateman, he works. Bateman's at his best in the slot. Zay Flowers can be utilized in the slot. He can utilize outside. You can put Zay Flowers wherever you want on the field. So I'd probably put Bateman at the slot and have both DJ and Flowers outside. And you could just move around Zay Flowers the way you've done all season. The next stretch of games will tell us a lot. Absolutely. Let's see what our defense does against the Bengals Thursday. That would be telling. I mean, they played poorly against them defensively when they saw them in Cincinnati. If you could do a better job defensively this time around, it definitely would help out. Without pass rusher, Ravens not going nowhere. It could be the determining factor against Kansas City, so we'll have to see. Thursday will definitely tell us a lot. If Joe comes in and smokes a secondary, probably not a good sign. Potentially. But it is what it is at the end of the day. Anyway, guys, I have been here for 2 hours. I want to enjoy the rest of my night. We've said our piece. We've spoken as much as we can about this. We got a game in 2 days, so we got to prepare for that. I'll probably talk about the Ravens-Bengals matchup tomorrow, but I don't think there's much to really talk about in this. You know, I just needed to speak on this. I knew, as soon as I got home, I knew I was going to speak on this. Because I already knew how the Ravens flock was going to react to this, and so far, it's been a lot of negative aspects. So I had to speak on both the good and the bad and give the overall take. It is what it is at the end of the day. You just got to deal with what you have. So, you know, you go with what you got, and you see how far you can go. That's pretty much it. Anyway, I am going to cut it off here because I want to go enjoy the rest of my night. We've been here for 2 hours. We had a whole extra hour because we were doing a lot of discussions in the chat. But it is what it is. I get it. People are passionate about their team, and it's always going to be that way. I'm passionate about my team as well. But no, I've always been the same. I've always been the same person in terms of how I talk about it. I talk about the positive, I talk about the negative. It's never fun talking about the negative, but it is an aspect that has to be addressed. You got to talk about every aspect. I'll be hypocritical if I'm sitting here talking about the media, only talking about the negative aspects of the Ravens, and then I just do the same thing by just talking about only the positive side. I'd be hypocritical for me. I'll talk about the positive and the negative. It's not always fun to have videos like this. Trust me, I prefer streams where we can chill out, have fun, and not have to go into the negative aspect of this. And at the end of the day, I don't think this was really much of a negative thing. I spoke on the issues. We started this very positive too, because I talked about them getting a receiver, which is something they needed for depth, and I talked about them getting a cornerback, which is also something they needed for depth. So we started on the positive aspect. But as soon as you talk about the negative aspect of the Ravens, ooh, it can spark debates, man. It can absolutely spark debates. And it's something that always gets fans riled up. When you talk about the negative aspect, conversations happen. But when you talk about the positive aspect, everyone's like, hey, everything's going good. We don't need to discuss this. We're doing well. The team's doing well. Everything's positive. So it's something that just comes with the aspect of talking about your football team. It is what it is at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm going to end it here, man. 2 hours. Ugh, I came from work. It's been a long day. and then I just spend 2 hours on stream. That's a lot. That's a lot. But I appreciate you guys. I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of your night. We got the game on Thursday, so hopefully we'll have guys healthy enough. I'm going to go take a look at the injury report to see how that's going. Lamar didn't practice, but Harbaugh already said he's going to play on Thursday. And I know they're just giving him rest days, which is fine. With that being said, guys, enjoy the rest of your night. I will see you later. Be sure to stay safe, and peace out.